I'd like to call this meeting of the Waco ISD Board of Trustees to order. A quorum is present in person and online. The meeting is also available as a video and audio conference in accordance with the governor's suspension of certain open meeting requirements to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. In accordance with the suspended rules, we certify the following. Members of the public may attend this meeting in person or watch it on WIC TV or online. Members of the public attending in person may sign up to offer public comment on an agenda item as is a normal practice. Members of the public who are not attending were given instructions about how to submit comments to Joshua Butcher by email by 10 o'clock last night. Members of the board who are not physically present are participating via video conferencing, which allows for two-way communication, and all items to be discussed or voted upon have been posted in accordance with state law. If you have any questions about the suspended open meeting requirements, please contact the Office of the Attorney General by calling 888-672-6787 or by emailing toma@oag.texas.gov. At this time, the board is going to go into closed session for Texas Open Meeting Act Section 551, 071, 072, and 074 to consult with its attorney, discuss real property and personnel. We'll be reconvening in open session, hopefully within the next 30 minutes or so. Okay, we are back. Are y'all ready for the recording? The board's back from closed session where no action was taken. Next on our agenda is public comments, but I understand we didn't receive any. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Next is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the bid award for the Paul Tyson field replacement. Is that going to be?
Cheryl, you want to come up and speak to that? Why don't you come over here to this chair? There you go.
Do I need to hold it down?
No, you don't have to do
You have to
that.
press the button.
You don't have to.
Okay. Okay, so we have tonight the bid award for the Paul Tyson Field replacement project that I know you guys have seen all of the preliminary design work for and everything. Our low bidder we had 4 bids. Low bidder is Northridge Construction Group out of Dallas. Their bid was a total bid proposed is $8.9 million, which is about $500,000 under what the budget was. And that does include a $700,000 contingency that hopefully we can save and put back to fund balance.
Does anybody have any questions? Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how much I like having y'all right here. And not having to turn around and look for everybody. Yeah, it's so much easier. Anyway, anybody have any questions?
Cheryl, are the competing bids, are they posted? Probably seen them now, but
Are they posted?
yeah. So that's it information.
It was in the agenda for tonight.
Yeah, okay.
It's in the packet. Do you want to see it? I have it right here.
Yeah, I'd just be curious. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, the high bid was 11.146.9, and then there were 2 at that price range, and then there were 3 in the 750 to 8.9 range
They come well recommended.
before the alternates.
Huh?
They come well recommended.
Yes. You want to speak to that?
Sorry, any kind of questions, sir?
Oh, about the references on Northridge.
Oh, yes, they're actually very good, and we were excited to get a new vendor.
Awesome.
Question.
Good, I trust you.
So we had presented several options on, was it the drainage, the relocation of some drain pipes or something?
Mhm.
And I think Jared presented several alternatives, kind of the that included in this, or?
There was no alternates provided for drainage. I don't know which one was upon in the specifications, but we said that the two alternates that are mentioned. Yeah, I'd have to get back to you on that, Mr. Sykes, since it's been a couple of 3 months since we looked at that, but I would be.
Alex would know he's under quarantine, so he could.
I'd be pretty confident that,
Kevin might know.
I would be pretty confident that the architects taking care of that in the specifications, but I couldn't tell you which one.
Yeah.
And that's in the three-way agreement for the venue project as well, how we're gonna handle that,
I just don't
so
know if we resolved that with Jared in terms of identifying.
I think we did.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Okay, we can find that out and get back to you.
But I'd be happy
Let
to
you
get
know.
that back to you, but I know we did, I just can't, I can't recall it.
It seems like there were some pretty wide range costs
Yeah.
involved with that.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Davis, were there any local within McLennan County billers for this?
Local,
To
Yes.
Yeah, John Irwin and HCS are both local.
Now, how far off were they from the low bid?
HCS was not too far off, about 300,000 more, but John Irwin was about 2.3 million higher.
How much?
2.3 million.
That's what we.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? I'll entertain a motion. Y'all are ready to vote.
I move that we accept the administration's recommendation on and award to
Northridge Construction Group.
Thank you, Mr. Floyd. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Hey, we have Kay Douglas with us tonight. Thank you, Kay, for joining us in person. Here, you may please join us at a round table, square table.
I love what you've done with the place.
Thank you so much. We're all yours. Thank you for coming back and.
Well, thank you for
You've been
wanting
so
me back.
wonderful. You've
And
been working with us for, oh my gosh, maybe 10 years, you think?
has it been that long? Wow.
2012, 2011? Right after
Yeah.
Dr. Kate came, I think.
Yeah.
But you haven't aged, I mean, we look exactly the same.
You do. You do. Those of you that have been here that long, you do. Let me say Happy School Board Appreciation Month. I know you don't hear that often enough, and you should hear it more than just January, but I am here to echo that. And congratulations are in order to 3 of you for being returned to office. So, and I say that because I was a school board member and I know what it's like to go through reelection. But I say congratulations also because your community cared enough. I mean, I love running unopposed, but the fact that someone runs says that 3 people in your community cared. And it also says that your community recognized what the 3 of you are doing. So congratulations for that. Mr. Vidania, you're looking like it's condolences, but it's really, it's congratulations. And I know you did it out of the joy of doing this. And also, let me say to you, you all have been together as a group for 18 whole months. Yeah, from when you appointed a couple of obviously really fine people to your midst, but it matters. It matters. And I've been checking up on y'all, watching your last board meeting last week to make sure you didn't say anything bad about me. And I heard Angela say, well, now we don't want to make it 3+ hours, so we need to get this done. But you obviously didn't listen to her. So we are into 3++, thanks to you. But my goal is always to make this as painless as possible, because I am a firm believer in team building, and it is a required part of your board service. But I also want it to be something that works for you, that makes you leave here feeling better about your role and about being with each other. But I do want to spend some time, as I always do, asking you the great things that are happening. Now, bear in mind, I've done research, so I kind of know some good things that y'all are doing, but I know I could not possibly know it all. So aside from having 3 of your folks return to you and getting the approval of the community, what else? What else? And I want to say, out of those 18 months, 10 of them have been during COVID. So that in and of itself is amazing, that you had 3 people who wanted to run again when they could have said, thank you, no, I'm done. But what else? What are the amazing things that are happening here?
Well, I'll jump out there and say, I think that in view of the events since late February, March, we have proven to have such an incredible staff across the board of the district. Central office administrators, faculty, campus staff, certainly our custodial group, as they cleanse the operations. We're here before, after, sometimes maybe during. Got to applaud them, and can't say that enough and strong enough. At least my wife's a teacher. I think that she recognizes that each campus is certainly under the challenge, and it's not. This would be an easy time that we would be down and around. I don't sense that at all. And it's unfortunate we can't be face to face like we were in the past. But I think I'll say as we get stronger, we were kind of like the focus on at the federal level. We were pretty strong going into this, which enabled us to get to this point. I think we were strong going into it, and I think we've certainly been not only stronger, but we're going to come through this and be as strong or stronger. I think that's what I would recognize from the get-go.
Well, that's huge, and I think you're right, that the fact that you go into it strong means that you have a better ability, because every district didn't go into it strong and hasn't had that same. So I
think all those that had an opportunity to, I guess, play a role, because they have stepped up to the plate, and it doesn't make this tough.
Okay.
We have some challenges that face us still, but.
Well, we're going to get to those in a minute. We're going to talk about those. You know me.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's huge. What else? Who else?
Great leadership. I think we basically grew with COVID, everything we basically thrown into an obstacle course. Where we had her run sprint up hills, and then we were throwing things at her. She was catching on wall running, and then we had her arm crawl. And I think all while serving the district. And so I think, that type of leadership, I think that type of leadership inspires people. And I think some of the community listening, really gathering communities, I feel like has done a great job of giving people the opportunity to speak, to be listened to, and then to react based off of what people are saying. Not react, respond. And I think COVID has been the ultimate obstacle course in terms of for a school district, for personnel, for administration, for teachers, for students, for parents. I mean, it is, we want to talk about having to pivot and run fast. And the COVID was that, I think, for a lot of people. And I think that, even, talking through giving the teachers extra hot days because they've been hearing that they've been working until 10 o'clock at night. I personally have been somewhat involved in the district talk,
Mhm.
and then also coordinated for schools, volunteers for school. And I've never heard of a pop day in like 21 years being involved in this district. I've never heard of a pop day, and that is, might seem like small, but it's a huge, huge thing for our teachers, our administrators. That's going to go a long way. Anyway, so I just think I've always talked about leadership not being a top down but a bottom up, and I really think that seeing that and shifting the picture of our district, that it's doing some great things, and I think COVID has masked some of the accomplishments that we could probably have seen if
Mhm.
we had a normal school year. So, I know we're gonna have challenges going on. Once COVID has kind of subsided a bit, but, I think really we've got, even in the midst of a fast-paced year, I think we're putting things in place that we really make a difference. And I just think Dr. Hanson, and it's been this trickle down, bottom up type of leadership that has been very helpful.
So I love your description of what you had her doing, because it's like playing a game where the rules literally change every few minutes. And the hard part is keeping your community informed and not having them say, wait a minute, you just said, saying, we're telling you as best we know right now, the rules have changed with the states, with the feds, with TEA, with whomever. So yeah, I think that was a very apt description. The other thing I heard you say was people felt like they had a chance to speak, they had a chance to be heard, and they got a response. You absolutely cannot discount what that means to staff, to students, to parents, to community members. Because in the absence, you may not have seen this, but in the absence of good information, people will just fill in whatever they think. And it's never good, but to have that the consistency of saying, this is what we know today. This is what we have to do today. It may be different next week. It may be different tomorrow, but here's what we know. So thank you for that. Who else? What else?
I'm really excited about some of the committees that have just kind of taken off this year, which is a weird year because we're pulling back on some things, but we're not really. We're forging ahead with a lot of things that were put in place before COVID hit. And instead of going, okay, we're putting all that on the back burner, it's still being pushed. And the facilities committee just started, and it was really, I thought it was a great kickoff. It's like 90 people on this committee, but it was done by Zoom, but I think it went really well, and I've gotten good responses from the people I know who participated, and just that, there's a lot of community engagement, and that's really exciting. And it's easy, I think, right now to kind of say, well, we're not going to do all that this year, but instead I think we're doing some of the things anyway, knowing that this is finite and we're going to be on the other side of it, and you have to be prepared for that on the other side. So
yeah. What other committees?
I was on one about graduation and kind of retooling what we're looking for requirements and those kinds of things. Yeah.
Aha, yes.
Yep. So that one's been interesting. And then just a lot, some of the other things that have been done that aren't committees, but more just like moving forward with some of the literacy initiatives that we've put in place, curriculum initiatives. The IT thing was kind of, trial by fire, but we've got a lot of things out now in that are still, some of it needs to be tweaked still, because that's always going to be true, but it's out there. And I think that everybody's getting better and better about using it and how to use it and all those good things.
Yeah, we've learned a lot, and you're right. It would be easy to say, never mind everything else, we're just going to focus on this. But when this is over, and this will be over, we still have those things. So keeping your eye, on the crisis and on the future beyond is something to celebrate. Okay, who else? What else? What are you celebrating?
I'm celebrating.
Well, that's why I come. That's why I come every year or so. So you celebrate. I'm not going to stare at you and put this.
You know,
Put,
yeah, I guess in a year like this, you tend to, for the year past, to think about all the terrible things, setbacks that have
Mhm.
waylaid us. I'm very appreciative of Dr. McCannon's stoicism, calm, influence on them. Didn't run out of the room with their hair on fire. Which would be easy to do, and a lot of folks would.
Mhm.
It's I think you have a very calming presence, and I think that's very important in times like these, and just where to keep everybody headed towards focusing on the work. Honestly, how we're doing, I think, is anybody's guess. I don't think we know.
Mhm.
But, this too shall pass.
And there are a lot of things we won't know
Yeah.
for a while until it's
Well,
in the
we
rear
arguing
view
about
mirror and
decades,
everybody's had their chance to do the research, but you're right. You're absolutely right. And I'm going to guess that you're like a duck, that you're sitting on the water looking all calm and underneath you're paddling like crazy, but you make it look good.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that just as I celebrated the school board members for running again, there are some superintendents that said, had enough. Yeah, I'm eligible to retire. I will see y'all. So you're right. I mean, it's,
Don't do that.
I'm sorry, I didn't come here to give you any ideas.
Not allowed.
Not happening yet.
But you all know that there are folks who didn't choose to stay in the battle for whatever reason, not judging, but to say, I'm at the helm of this. I'm going to stay here. I am committed. I am going to take care of the students. I'm going to take care of the staff. I'm going to take care of parents. I'm going to take care of community. It's huge. It's huge. So thank you. Who next? What else? What else exciting is going on?
Yeah, pretty much have to repeat what everybody else said.
Mhm.
The leadership, a lot of teachers still staying positive and finding ways to do things through Zoom or in class, and the students too. The students, they, from last year when we first went to online, they were a lot better. They're more understanding and everything. So it's positive with them.
Yeah, remember when we said kids will never be able to do this? There are certain things we're just like, no, they're not going to be able to do it. Just when their teachers stepped up, kids have stepped up.
Yeah, you got first graders up through high school kids. Some of them know how to do, computer and Zoom better than I do.
Well, I think all of them know better than I do. My grandson's in 5th grade. I figured out I am not smarter than a 5th grader. So I hear you. Okay, what else? Who else?
We did, which is extremely exciting, I think, for me, was when we passed the resolution, the equity resolution
I saw that.
that we passed, that I think has been something that we needed to directly address.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I just think that was a big thing. It was an exciting thing, and I think having that equity lens on everything that we do is really going to be helpful. And I think, I think it's just going to be helpful. I think we do it probably as educators. Educators do it all the time. They always have sub-pops. You're always looking at all your numbers, who's doing what, where their grades are. But I think just as a district coming from the board down, just saying this is of importance. This is what it is. So I think that was really exciting, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I was reading how that happened, that it wasn't top down necessarily. You put it out there and there were folks who said, yeah, this is what I've been working on. This is what I'd like to work on, put it together and brought it to you, which is so much better and so much
Meaningful.
Thank you. So much more meaningful and so much more likely to have it be done and have it not just be something that you passed and you can hang on the wall and say, look what we did, but having that input of how we're going to do it. And all of that stuff evolves because you start here, and once you have said, this is important to this district, this is important, whether there's a pandemic or whatever's going on, then you will see more and more ways that people will step up because you put your stamp of approval on it and said, this is important to the board. And I was impressed.
And I would add that it started with our new mission and vision statements, and so that too came from our school leaders when we were still meeting. We had conversations about mission and vision with our campus leaders, and then the board weighed in on that mission statement, and that launched that conversation. And then we began to talk about diversity and equity and inclusion, and built on that with the resolution, but also with some leadership work within the district.
And I also saw that when they brought it to you, the board modified it.
Yes.
You said, that's great, and here's some more that we want to put in there. This is how we want to change it. And that makes a difference because it just says to your constituents that we are flexible. We are going to continue to look at things. We are going to thoughtfully consider things, and we're willing to say, how about this? And agree as a group. And that's huge. I mean, it may not seem like much to you, but I work with boards all over the state. There are places where there is no equity statement, where where the board and that people may be divided on whether there should be and what it should say. There's not that collaboration. So to go from an idea to actually having something that you've molded is huge. Not that that's not enough, but what else? Y'all can talk too. No, just kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding. You can't talk, but.
And Norman's here too.
Norman stayed home because of me. I know it. I mean, I know. And I was preparing to give you a big bear hug, but it's okay. What are you excited about that's happening, Norman? Other than that I'm here.
I have to give Dr. Ken Callan a thumbs up on the way that they have handled this. I voted no against us going with the in-person and virtual learning. And now I believe that my vote was wrong. And the reason I say that is that you got to realize we are a minority school district. And the word that I've been getting from the people I know is that the African American students in our district are having problems with this virtual learning. And I even got a phone call from a couple of people that know me saying, "Hey, I see kids outside playing. Aren't they supposed to be doing the so-called regular school hours?" And I said, I don't know, because I don't know who they are or what the plan is and everything like that. And also a conversation that I had with Dr. Ken Callan is the long-term effect that this is going to have, especially on our minority students. And so, no, I really don't have anything except for the fact that the district has tried its best. I will say that, with trying to get the material out, trying to get the equipment out and everything like that. But there's going to be a long-term effect on this that especially on the minority students in the district, that it's going to take anywhere from 3 to 5 years for us to catch up with. And as long as this pandemic is in effect, and as long as we keep on doing this virtual learning and everything, I don't see really, like I said, in the minority community, I don't see this being very successful.
Okay, and we're going to talk more about that because we're going to talk about the challenges also. But I heard you say that you voted one way and now you realize that what they were proposing makes sense.
Well, like I voted to go 100% virtual.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was suggesting. But
Right.
now, yes, if I voted today, my vote would not be the same.
I understand. And boards are doing that all over the state, all over the country, all over the world, is you've got to go with the information you have right now. Because I am an introvert and I have worked from home for 16 years. So last March, I thought, not a problem. This is what I do. I now have a reason not to see people. It's okay. But after about 3 months, because I thought, well, this will be over in 3 months, tops. I can go on to wherever I plan to go in July. And when I realized it wasn't going to be over, I had to rethink it. I had to reevaluate. I had to make another decision. Another 3 months, I thought, you know what? This is still not over. We're constantly changing given the information that we have. And I, as an introvert, no longer wanted to be introverted. I needed to get out. And, TASB is fine with me training virtually. I don't actually have to travel. But it is important to me that if you're going to be here, if we're going to have students in classes, if we're going to have teachers in classes, and it varies. I mean, I know it changes all the time. Then I need to be here with you. Yes, socially distanced and safe and all of that, but we have to figure out how to do what it is that we do, given the information we have. And it's always evolving. So hats off to you. Glad to be here with you. What else? What are you excited about?
That's a segue for COVID. I was kind of making my list. I thought our COVID response was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
The rules changed every week, sometimes daily. I thought our outreach to the community was excellent. I think Dr. Kim Cannon and her team tackled it every possible way. She did a Facebook Live, she did a telephone survey, she did a written survey, she did email blast. They really covered the waterfront. And by the time we were presented with the recommendation, I think we were very confident that they had really done their best to figure out what we had, what our parents and community wanted. And, we are down in enrollment, but we're down below the state average.
I heard that last week. I did.
Which is a real positive, especially considering our demographic. And so I feel good about our odds of getting those kids back. The next thing I think is really successful is we've had a big problem here with leavers and trying to figure out our graduation rate's been terrible and our data's bad and we haven't had anybody who's really dug in there and done it. And Denise Bell has just done an outstanding job figuring that out and finding those kids. And for the first time, I felt like, wow, we're really have a handle on this. And if we lose them, we'll know why. But it won't be just because we shrugged our shoulders and, oh, well. I have to give a nod to IT, not just for technology with COVID, but Jerry has done an outstanding job. What a mess he inherited, and he's making huge strides.
And he got here in May.
So, and I have to say, we feel like we were set up for COVID, maybe better than others, but the fact is, we weren't. We didn't have devices for kids. We don't have kids with access to Wi-Fi. We have all kinds of technology challenges, and Mr. Allen and his team have made it look simple, and I'm just so appreciative for that. Athletics for the first time, and I've been a parent in this district for 22 years, and it's the first time I have ever really felt hopeful about our athletic program being something we can be proud of. And I think Coach Love's efforts to dig into middle school and get those feeder patterns going. And for the first time, can you believe it, our kids are actually playing middle schoolers outside of the district.
Wow.
When I first was a parent and my boys were playing soccer and they were just playing the 4 middle schools, I just accepted it, was told that's the way it is and you can't do anything about it. And Dr. Kincannon and Coach Love have done something about it. It's really exciting. I also have we have a solid district plan that's in plain speak. It's real, it means something, and as a board, it's again a first time after years of looking at these plans that just are a bunch of TEA mumbo jumbo. So I really appreciated that. I want to give our community advisory committee really excited me last week. The excitement and energy, support, and love for our community that came out of that meeting, a Zoom meeting of all things, which are so miserable.
Is that the 90 people?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it is.
Everyone was given an opportunity to introduce themselves,
Mhm.
and to
That's
a
90 minutes
person-
there.
It was
What's
an
that?
hour.
That's 90 minutes already.
I know. And to a person, it was just, there were so many unique voices and, but just a commitment and a love, and you could really feel like people are ready. We're ready to do better by our kids. Our facilities have been overlooked. Just, it seems like we just have all these other crises that have taken us away from it, but that's exciting. And that committee is so impressive, a really who's who of Waco leadership, and they're in it with us, and that feels really good. Our leadership, I want to dovetail a couple of things that Stephanie and Alan said about our leadership being top-notch, and then equity and diversity, because I really feel like Dr. Kincannon was given a charge to work on the diversity of our staff, especially at leadership, at the cabinet level. And that was before George Floyd. That was before BLM. Our new mission statement and vision, that was before all that happened. And she did that work in earnest, and our team is, not only are they exceptional, but really diverse in ethnicity and perspective, and it's just something that I'm really proud of. And then I need to give a shout out to the board, because I think the fact that we have been together for 18 months and we have been solid, and we have not taken our eye off the ball. We have allowed the administration to really focus on, and this was all even before COVID hit. I mean, I think I'm just really proud of the way that we have worked together. And I think that everyone contributes, and everybody's here, and, everybody cares, and no one is trying to throw a wrench in it. I feel like we've all been pulling together, and that's exciting. And as a consequence, I think that's one of the reasons we've responded really well to COVID, is because I don't think the board's been a distraction in all of it. Even though we had a healthy conversation about calendar and Mr. Manning's concerns, I mean, what valid concerns the community's wrestling with,
Right.
in-person, virtual, at home, that was where we were at the time. And, but I don't think the board throughout this process has shifted the focus to it or to any individual, but has allowed the administration to continue to do the work that we need to do, in spite of 3 of them having to campaign for
During
9
COVID.
months.
Yes.
9 months.
They could have had a baby in that time.
Oh my gosh.
No,
Miserable.
Well, I know you've got a few.
I couldn't do that.
Well, and we have 3 up this time.
Oh,
Yep, because.
yes, you have to run again.
Yes, ma'am.
You had so much fun last
Had
time.
so much fun, she just wanted to
So much
immediately do it
fun.
again.
Yeah.
But I think that their election was also a big success for us as a board and as a community and as a district, because in a November presidential election year that we had, you guys, I think, 25,000 votes
how many votes did you guys have to split?
Oh, yeah, it was
It
something.
was right
I
around
mean,
there.
normally,
Normally
no more
there's-
than 2,000
Yeah.
people
Yeah,
vote.
it was about 25,000.
District-wide, that's in a at-large position.
Right.
Yeah.
And they all
2,000.
won, and they all won with pretty solid margins, and I think that, what that told me is, our community believes in the work we're doing. They feel like, there did need to be a big shakeup or change, that these three were good, and I think for those of us who chose, Robin and Jose, it really felt validating, that we chose.
So
we feel-
far, so far.
Yeah.
So far, I mean,
We
we're
did
still.
good, we did
but-
good.
But for us, it was like, okay, we made the right choice, good people. and-
Yeah, because you actually had a number of people to choose from.
We
It's
did.
not as though y'all were just the only people that were there, so.
No, it was a hard decision, and it was one we wrestled with, and we ultimately wanted to get folks that the community believed in and reelected, and that's what we did. So that was huge. What a huge relief to have them reelected in November. And I do think that we've been building trust with those communities that felt like we broke our word to them, or they felt like because of what happened a couple of years ago, we didn't handle it the way they would have liked us to, and felt like, oh boy, here we're going to slide back, and all the work we've done in the past is going to be lost. I do think we were set back, and I do think it's taken a lot of effort to build back and to build trust. But I do believe that with the equity statement, with the work of our staff, we've done Dr. Kincaid has done a beautiful job of really reaching, our national politicians could learn something from local school boards, because I think we have, she and her team have really done a good job of reaching across the aisle, so to speak, with those people who really had their hands tightly, I mean, they weren't reaching their hand back. And I think, and to not be critical of that, I think a lot of that was fair. But I do think that she and her team have really worked hard to make sure everyone in our community believes that they have a voice, and we hear them when they speak. And so that's been really exciting, and it's just been really good work, hard work. There's a lot of good work that was going on here before the pandemic, which we'll pick up once we get past this. But I think it's quite incredible with the pandemic. We have so much momentum, a lot of good momentum.
Can I embellish one thing on leadership?
Certainly.
That we've commented on. One thing I find that to kind of brings it together for me, when we were fortunate to recruit Dr. Kincannon into the district, we knew when she came in that she's got enormous networking skills. She knows how to connect the dots. We knew that, and it's bearing fruit, I guess is what I'm saying. And what I'm alluding to is when she came on board, she was faced with rebuilding staff, evaluating staff, going into a new school year on kind of a short timeline, working with campus administrators, campus principals, enormous task to achieve in the first few weeks that she was here, going into a new school year. And then COVID hit, okay? So her staff that she was recruiting, building, work in process, had to bear down and start networking with community leaders that would help us and the community and the county move forward. And being able to connect those dots, build trust, have people in the right position, which she's proven she can do. And not only is she in the right position, but I think the community has responded to that via 90 folks on our advisory committee, moving forward in a very adverse time, if you will, from a health standpoint, looking forward to opportunities to build our school district according to the expectations of the community. So I just wanted to put in perspective. She comes in, sets the stage, and being as new as she was, you know, she was knocking down task after task after task and keeping the board well informed in the process. So appreciate you.
Yeah. And not even just building trust, but rebuilding trust.
That's true.
And rebuilding trust of everybody.
That's true.
And at the same time, having to make the changes that you had to make when you first came in. Because in any situation where there's a new superintendent, the staff is kind of going, okay, here we go. Yeah, you just go ahead and put your little plans in place and we'll decide if we're going to go along with them. So you're right. You're right. In the midst of what's normally a transition,
Exactly.
to have to do that, but to inspire people, one, to stay, because everybody has a choice in this, you know, folks send their kids other places and people go work other places and all of that. But to do that, and as someone over here said, to not throw up your hands and
Right.
say, you know,
Yeah.
I can't deal with that because I've got to deal with this. So I'm going to give you a break every hour, and I don't have my cell phone out, so I got to keep an eye out, even though some people are not getting a break. Just saying. Just saying. This will be like in-room suspension. No, just kidding. Just kidding. But you talked about the board working well together. It's one of those things that could have either splintered you or brought you closer. And I am pleased to see that it brought you closer. And I love that you said that, yes, there were people with different ideas and there were things we had to work out. Because if all seven of you, where'd Norman go?
Yeah, I was asking that.
He's there.
Norman,
You there, Norman?
Can you see us?
what time is it?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted you to know I missed you as long as you're there, you know. And when you wake up, just say amen and we'll be okay.
She too.
Where I was going. Oh, but if all of you had all the same ideas, there would only need to be one of you. So it's not that you're celebrating that we're all, you know, groupthink and that we are totally uniform. What you're celebrating is that everybody brought their A game and asked the questions they needed to, that the community was asking and that they were being asked, and you were able to resolve that as a team, which makes a huge difference. And going forward, having seen you do that, folks can say, okay, if I can trust them in that, then I can trust them with this. And one of the interesting things about having the community buy into it, and one of the things that I've noticed is that when kids had to go home, when we had to shift to at home, whether you had a device, whether you had Wi-Fi, whether you had anything, if nothing else, parents who did not necessarily appreciate the district and teachers and administrators and everything that they did suddenly went, whoa, you know, this is harder than I thought. They do more than I thought. It's not just they get 3 months off in the summer and isn't this a cushy job? I mean, I can tell you, my grandson, 5th grade, that was when I figured out I wasn't smarter than a 5th grader. I definitely wasn't smarter than a 5th grade teacher. And it's hard. So that one of the things, we're going to talk about silver linings because I think there have been some for the education system, but one of them is that the folks who didn't think that schools did a whole lot, who didn't necessarily appreciate what you did, said, you know, this is hard. And I had one grandson I was helping with. I did not have more than one child at home, you know, God forbid, in different grades, because I would have been in, you know, I couldn't go to Looney Bin because it was COVID, but I would have needed some more support.
Right.
So I think one of the things that happened here, like a lot of places, is that the community said, we understand better what all of, you know, what all the district does. And for, you know, I've always been one who's been concerned about what happens in the summer when they have 3 months out. We had 5 months out. And I'm going to applaud you because you found your kids, because there are districts that still have no idea where their missing kids are. They don't know if they went to another district, if they're just sitting at home. And time is going to tell in those things. Something else somebody said. I love that after 22 years, your athletics is something to be proud
Is
of.
he even still here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I said it even if they wasn't here, y'all still.
I'll tell him. Yeah, he was here. I saw him going out the door.
It's
But
true. I've already told him.
yeah,
Add something to that?
certainly.
You know, I have a young daughter, and I've been talking to families in the district who probably, oh gosh, maybe like 2 years ago, would have maybe considered other schooling,
Mhm.
but who are looking to keep their kids in district, so in Waco, but not just in district, but to their neighborhood school,
Mhm.
which is huge because I think, if you gain that speaks a lot. I mean, I think, Waco ISD has had this negative narrative for
Mhm.
so long. And people have been kind of scared off by that. But I think, man, once you start getting these younger families who are sending their kids to like neighborhood schools, that you kind of start flipping the narrative. I mean, I think
Stephanie, what do you think changed that?
I think it is,
Something about the pandemic, or was it just coincidence that all?
I think it's everything that's kind of happening economically within the city. So you've got all these homes, young families are starting to move into the homes, redo all these older homes. And then
Okay.
they're saying, okay, we're going to give it a shot. Like
Yeah.
they've either been, so some of these families that I'm thinking of, they've actually been volunteers within the schools.
Mhm.
And they've like set foot in and they realize that we've got some good schools, but then they might not know any other families, their
Mhm.
neighbors aren't sending the kids to the neighborhood school. So it's just you kind of want to send your kids with friends
Yeah.
to school. So I think, there's still little hurdles, but I think I'm hearing kind of this synergy from these younger families, young professionals who in Waco proper have not decided to get a turnkey house out in
Mhm.
the suburbs, but are planting here. And I think that's really encouraging. And I think that is, I still think there's places where we need to kind of help them and introduce them to principals and make sure that we really do make that great connection for them and other families. But I think, man, that's really encouraging to me.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about some of the challenges, and we'll circle back to that to talk about it. I'm going to give you a break in about 4 minutes and 30 seconds. But any last thing that we want to talk about in terms of what you're impressed with, what has worked well?
You want me to share, or you want to go to the board?
This is team of 8. Yes, I want you to share. Now, you've given us
I'm
little
kind of
snippets, but yes.
I'm listening more. I'm really proud of the curriculum work that we've done over the last year, and I think that would have been one of the easiest drop, because we started some solid initiatives before COVID hit with our data-driven instruction and curriculum writing in the summer, which was a challenge because we couldn't get all of the teachers in, and the action coaching, and our C&I team has really stuck with it. And we started a new literacy initiative in the midst of COVID.
Oh, wow.
So the training has continued for staff. Has it been everything we would have wanted? No, because it's harder to learn. It's just harder by Zoom to bring people together for professional development, but we've done it anyway. And our assistant super for C&I and her team have stayed on course, and they're working, and our schools are working, and our principals have been phenomenal to keep going. Somebody spoke about listening. I don't think that was Angela or someone else, but just listening to their teachers. And, we built a good foundation for listening with the design thinking work that we did. And then we carried that into COVID with listening to teachers, and each of our campuses had a little task force, and all of that time spent with teams of teachers, got everyone comfortable with just having school. We had to get,
Yes.
that was just a huge step to reopen our schools and think about what does a classroom look like and how's this going to feel and what's going to be different. And so there were just so many celebrations along the way to make that happen. And our schools just did an incredible job of launching and then adapting. I saw Christmas light shows on Facebook from some of our schools. They couldn't do anything else, but they had a drive-through Christmas. I don't know, that's probably not typical here, but they had drive-through Christmas light shows in their school campuses. We gave out awards, drive curbside. Everything we do has just kind of been turned upside down, and they have very creatively come up with new ways of doing the things that we do to honor kids and take care of them. And so it's just been really incredible to think about what happened in the course of a year.
Yeah.
And if you really stop and think about it, it's a lot. It's just a tremendous amount of adapting and just being flexible and moving and step by step moving forward, problem solving.
Yeah.
So I'm just really proud of the whole team. So I kind of rambled all around different topics, but the teamwork has been great.
Yes.
And then just the sticking with it and staying focused.
Yeah, I heard Alan say that morale is good when it really could be different. And having a coughing fit will not get you out of here, but it will get you to a break. 7 to 10 minute break. I'll tell you 7, you'll come back in 12. But and you are allowed to break.
Oh,
Yeah, I really didn't.
okay. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. One of the most challenging things, and I think y'all have kind of alluded to it, has been keeping not just morale, but mental health. So talk to me about the things that you've done for students, for staff, for administrators, for parents, for community, because that's been a huge part. And I won't look at anybody because people think I'm calling on them if I make eye contact.
So I think listening to them is huge. We had a teacher come to our meeting last month who he'd signed up for public comment to complain about the workload and the expectations and the calendar. And in between the time that the meeting was posted and he showed up to complain, the administration had reworked the calendar to give them those to work in some comp days. And so when he came to speak, he went, well, never mind. Thank you. This is, he still explained to us, which we know it, but it doesn't hurt to hear it. And I think to give people some space to tell you how incredibly difficult it is helpful.
Yeah. And I think it's important for parents who aren't teachers by trade, or who don't live with a teacher, or have a close friend who's a teacher, to hear that. Because I mean, we for so long expected teachers to heal the sick and raise the dead and walk on water, and we just thought, here's one more thing, And the problem is they keep doing it. Every time we throw something else at them, they do it well. So we feel free to, as parents, as community, to throw some more on. So,
The board probably doesn't know this, but I'll brag on my team. We decided we were going to call teachers, and it was sometime in football season. But we decided we were going to call, so I had HR come up with a spreadsheet, just randomly give us a list of teachers from across the district, and we divided them up, and we all called to interview them and just say, how are things going? What do y'all need? And so I had, 3 or 4 or 5 on my list, and I was calling some on the way to the football game, and And it was really good because I talked to teachers who, some didn't answer me that night because they were so tired they had already gone to bed by the time I called at 7:30 on a Friday night. And then I had some who answered and they were putting their kids to bed, and you just got a glimpse into their lives and how busy they were and how tired they were. And then we had some that, gave us some really good feedback. They didn't understand why we were doing a certain reading instrument at the elementary level. And that was one of mine. I was able to connect that teacher to our CNI department. But there was real value in that. The superintendent calling from her cell phone to say, how are you doing? We're just checking in. And every one of my team members did that. And we did that intentionally to see what we could learn, right? To see where our blind spots were and how we could help our teachers. And so that's just an example of, that listening that Angela was referring to, but trying to hear what's happening in the district. And it has been hard to do with COVID because there aren't as many events to be at to where people will tell you things. And so it has been very difficult to keep the pulse. And we've done that. We've tried to do that with our principals, find ways to listen to them. We continued our 3-day administrative retreat in the summer. We had to do it by Zoom, but we did it. And it was valuable to give, just to stay connected. It was about connection, just staying connected to people.
Yeah, that is huge. What's interesting about doing virtual learning is it says you have to check in and do all the stuff before 11:59 p.m.
Yes.
And what we figured out was parents were waiting till 10 o'clock to contact teachers and wanted to have a conversation, wanted to chat, wanted to, to talk about the lesson. I mean, it's horrifying. I mean, I understand that parents are busy and they've got other stuff going on, but I would not want my job calling me at 10 o'clock at night to be doing some work. So yeah, that is huge. And to have people I saw something on Twitter, which is where I get all my important information these days. But, somebody said, an administrator said, what if we scrapped evaluations and just said, how are you doing? What can we do to help you? How can we support you? Right. So you've managed to do both. And that's huge.
And my team did, Kyle was doing that and Jerry was doing that and our assistant superintendents and just all in it as a team to really make sure we stay focused on taking care of the schools.
And who's doing that for them?
Yeah, I hope we're doing that for each other every week.
Okay.
We have a very tight team, and we're really working well together.
Yeah. I have a 7th grader, or he's an 8th grader. He'd be mad if I said he was a 7th grader. But sorry, Doug.
We'll try not to tell him.
One of the things that I thought was good is that most of the classes when he was doing them virtually, and because they're still kind of on the same format when they're in person, they have a check-in feature. And so they ask those questions like, how are you feeling? How have you been sleeping? All those little things. I mean, are you in a good mood today? And if there's anything that you want us to know, here's some space for it. And I know mine, sometimes he absolutely took advantage of it and said, this is really aggravating me today, and here's why. And sometimes, he's like, oh, I'm okay. But and he's had teachers actually respond to it. It wasn't just an exercise.
Yeah, check the box, yeah.
Right, if he said something a little different or he seemed particularly, blue or whatever, they would reach out and try to, connect with them. And I think one thing we have in this district that I'm not sure we always utilize well is we have a lot of social work type folks, and they're great. And some of them are clinician level. And sometimes I kind of feel like we need to kind of plug some of them in a little bit differently because we have them. I'm just not sure, it'd be neat to see them getting more efficiently utilized, I guess, sometimes. And this is a great time to kind of look at all of that because everybody knows that this situation has caused people who have no anxiety to have anxiety, people who have never had depression to have depression, and then people who already kind of suffer from some of those things. Of course, it's been worse for them. So,
yeah. Okay. before we move on to what the challenges are, well, maybe, yeah. I'm going to ask you this now, but I want you to think about it as we talk about challenges. There's some things that we did in response to what's happening that even when this is over, we're probably going to want to continue. You know, there are just so many things. I mean, there were so many jobs we did not think could be done from home, and all of a sudden, people have been doing them from home and doing them well. There are some things that we've put in place in response to that I don't want us to throw out, and I mean us collectively throughout the state. So be thinking about what are those things that we've put in place. And I'll give you an example. Because board meetings have been Zoom, there are a whole lot more folks who could actually either attend it right then or watch it and watch the replay. There were people who were working with kids in special ed. More parents were coming to ARD meetings because they didn't have to leave home, they didn't have to leave their job, they didn't have to take, not their kid's not worth it, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying.
The childcare for their other.
Right, but
children is more
because they
efficient.
could attend virtually. So there's some things that maybe, I love the fact, I mean, they had to do a special rule for school board members to be able to Zoom. And wouldn't it be nice if we could continue that? Because if you were out of town, say, and you literally couldn't be in town, but you could be on a board meeting, you know, by a Zoom, there are just some things that I think that we've uncovered and we've started to do that I think that we'll want to continue. So be thinking about that as I now ask you, what are the challenges? Because we've talked about all of
this. You want this now?
You can give it to me whenever you want.
Well, yeah, I guess to me, I think either Zoom meetings like we're having now, or in an office environment, or the advisory committee, or any of these, I think as those increase in popularity, as far as flexibility, as far as accessibility and what have you, it becomes, I think, a channel to lose a high level of engagement, to become a little bit more, I'll say, disengaged if you're inclined to do so. Because of the frequency of it. I mean, it's just, as more and more happening, it's just like, we're going to just meet, okay? It's been a while since we've met, so we're going to have, so I guess the challenge to me is to get the best out of these meetings and keep people engaged, even though we're not meeting in person. And that's largely, communicating, by email perhaps, talking about the issues ahead of time that hopefully will resolve either by vote when we meet by Zoom. But I just think it's a way, and maybe I'm thinking about it from the student standpoint also, when they're meeting virtually, it's still kind of a way to be disengaged. Okay. And what we're finding, I think, is the family unit is not able to backfill, for what the teachers were supplying in the classroom. So I think finding ways to a challenge to keep those students engaged, even in a virtual environment. Now that may sound, like intuitive, but it seems like even adults will use that as a means of becoming disengaged. And if nothing else, you can click the button and take the video off. You can click the button and mute, and you can answer the phone over here. You can, somebody comes in and you can be diverted. So I'm just saying that. Well, what brought it up was I saw Norman lean over and it looked like he was on the phone or cooking or something like that. I don't know. So that's just an observation. That's all it is. So.
Just saying.
Which I think is a challenge and an opportunity together to be able to move it forward for those students that are up to the challenge. but bring those in that can continue to learn in that environment as well.
I hear you. I mean, I suffer from Zoom fatigue, actually. Because, well, I can be disengaged in person too. But I mean.
I don't believe that. But
Oh, trust me, I can. I can. But meeting on Zoom and being on Zoom is almost harder. Not even necessarily for being disengaged, but for me, just looking at, 16 faces or how many faces you can fit on a Zoom screen, and even more than seeing them is seeing everything you do. Because it's like sitting at a meeting with a mirror up and going, oh my God, is my face doing that? Or, that is a challenge to still do what you need to do to keep people engaged. Yeah, I should have bought stock in Zoom.
Well, may I make a comment about that?
Not if you're doing it by Zoom, no, go ahead.
I would say that, not only for the school board, but for my church, for Bible study, for several other meetings I have, I do a lot of Zoom. But what I do like about Zoom is that I do multitask when I'm on Zoom. And I was on the telephone sending a message out, and then I do some other things. So you can multitask when you're on Zoom. And as long as I do have on pants, but you seen the commercial about the guy having on just his shorts on in the Zoom conference. So, but I think as far as our board is concerned, the reason I Zoom is that I'm the oldest board member. I'm a Black male, and I have underlying health issues, and I've been keeping mine behind in the house so that I can be safe. Now, I took my shot yesterday, and they say it takes 2 or 3 weeks to build up the immunity, and then I'm going to get the second shot. And I do, hopefully, if everything goes well, I will start coming back in person next month. But I'm on Zoom because of health reasons, not because I don't particularly like it, but because of my personal situation, I think it is the best option for me.
Absolutely, and I'll be back next month to see you. No, just kidding.
I think when the governor looks at the Open Meeting Act, again, he really needs to allow board members to attend virtually.
Yep.
Yes.
Without that technology stuff, because each of us, I think, have attended virtually over the last 11 months for whatever reason.
Right.
But for one, I was sick, but I was still able to come. I was still able to participate in the meeting. And otherwise, I just wouldn't have been able to come to the meeting.
Exactly.
So I think I think we all can all agree that it's better in person. We've missed not having Norman here in person. He's missed being here, I think. But I think it would be nice for us to be able to have that option.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's nice for that option in committee meetings because it does make it easier for people who otherwise just can't, because it's much easier to pop on to a lunch meeting than try to go to a completely separate location. So I think for those kinds of meetings, it's actually sometimes pretty optimal because it does allow more engagement. And I think sometimes for kind of what you were talking about earlier, parents and ARD meetings and parents and other kinds of meetings, it's much easier for them to try to carve out some time where they can just get on their phone or just get on their computer and do a meeting, as opposed to having to figure out what they're doing with the other kids or, asking for time off of work and all those kinds of things.
And driving time.
Great.
Exactly. I mean, if you have evening meetings, there are lots of people who don't drive at night for whatever reason, but if they could be part of the meeting without having to go home afterwards. Yeah, I just think that there are lots of things that we're doing out of necessity that we don't necessarily want to throw away.
Yeah, there's some nice efficiencies for some meeting types and times, like Robin said. I think there's an opportunity to do some creative things with online learning that we haven't been able to do in the past because of the attendance accounting rules by the state. So if we could get some changes in that, we could you know, there are some kinds of programs for kids who could be successful that we could implement, but because we're bound to this seat time requirement, it's been a challenge to do that. And I think that even goes as far as dual credit, electronic dual credit courses and trying to get your minimum minutes of instruction in per day for students. And so I'd like to see, something at the state level to allow greater flexibility when this is over.
Yeah. I hear you. Anything else on that, or about what are the challenges? We've talked about the successes and you have so many of them, but we also talked about some challenges that are there.
I think I'll keep going. We had kids who were behind before COVID, and I think COVID will set them further behind. And so I don't think we yet know the full impact of that. And then I think compounding that problem is that we didn't have our pre-K kids. So pre-K was down all across the state. So we will have kindergartners enrolling who have not been to pre-K next year. And I think our kindergarten, we're going to have some hard
Research tells us
Hard
that'll be a
time.
problem.
Yeah. I think kindergarten classes will be really important next school year, particularly because kids missed out on pre-K.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think we're looking at teacher, which comes with challenges, and we're looking at like the teacher fatigue
Mhm.
from the learning curve that they had, the staying and not answering all of those. I mean, I think, we're looking in the fall, we're looking, hey, do you want to sign up for the year? Because I think it's a minimum cost, but I think that teacher fatigue is a very real thing, it could be a challenge. Heading into the fall.
I think principals too.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Exactly.
I think that's been a really hard year for them as well.
And particularly those that are at a place where they can retire. Because we've got a lot of folks who could retire, who are here because they love it. And we don't want them to suddenly say, you know what, now's the time. And think about the effect that has on people coming into the profession. Colleges have changed, teacher prep programs have changed. When it was time for people to do their student teaching, there were a lot of obstacles to that. So I think it's going to have a ripple effect. It's wider than just teacher and administrator fatigue. What else?
I think our facilities are a real challenge. We've got a great committee, but they have a lot of work to do. And the bond, whatever bond the committee recommends and we end up making a decision on, is going to be hard. Especially, we don't know what the financial fallout's going to be from the pandemic, whether or not we're going to be able to meet those needs. But I think I think the needs are so great and overwhelming, we're going to have to plug through. But it's going to be a challenge. And then if the legislature doesn't fully fund us and doesn't allow for this attendance waiver to continue for the end of the school year, we're looking at losing $5 million just in ADA this school year.
Just for the semester.
Just for the semester. Oh my God.
Just for the
So
semester.
we could have some real serious
We were held
financial
harmless
challenges.
we were held harmless through December 31st. But that's just we're doing one semester.
Which is going to make advocacy so much more important. Not that it's not important every couple of years or every day, but especially when the legislature's meeting. But they have got to hear more from more than board members, more than superintendents, which means we've got to involve the community and let the community know what you stand to lose and what every district stands to lose. That's enough to depress you.
I don't know if the nurses want to keep this, but I saw something really cool at a school, nurses doing their visits to the classrooms. The old traditional model is you go to the nurse's office for everything you need, right? But the nurses are going out to the students with their cars to give meds at the door and just take care of kids. And
Oh,
I thought
wow.
that was the coolest thing, and I got really positive comments from the nurse about that and how that they have really liked that. They've
Mhm.
gotten out to see the kids out in the, out on the campus, and so kind of home, classroom visits. Just was something interesting I observed as something different, right? That
Mhm.
we might want to do something like that, keep or not.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
again, wouldn't have thought of it but for COVID.
Mm-hmm,
But-
right, we just keep doing the same thing had we not had to
Yeah.
do something different.
I was thinking back to a report last week, we lose over 2,500 kids out of our district. We have 2,500 more kids who live in Waco ISD who do not choose to put their
Mhm.
children here. And I think, while I'm really encouraged what Stephanie was saying, what she's hearing, I think the challenge is going to be to actually pull them in, actually pull in those new people who are moving here into our school system. I think we do have some momentum building, but not only getting the 2,500 to come back, but then keeping the new interested in us and meeting their needs is going to be a big challenge.
Well, and keeping them from pre-K through
The whole way
graduation.
through.
Right.
Yeah.
We've been fighting that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've been coming for a while. That's outside of COVID, that was an issue, but it of course is magnified during COVID. Yeah, how do we reach that? And we talked about this before, perception becomes reality. So what is changing now is perception for a number of reasons, and how you continue to be intentional about that, not just have it happen or maybe not happen,
Mhm.
but to be intentional about that. Okay, what else? Other challenges?
I think behavior is still a challenge for our district, and COVID, Stephanie used the word mask, but behavior issues are down because number of students in classrooms are down, but I think we'll be hit hard with that when we have everyone back again. And I think that, kids who haven't been in schools, maybe a hard transition, kids who have behavioral needs.
Yeah. And have those behavioral needs even gotten worse because they weren't in
Without
an environment that was
structure.
structured?
Mhm.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. One of the things that we've known is that teachers continue to worry about students long after they're not there. And with the ones that they aren't able to eyeball and they aren't able to have contact with, they continue to worry about them and continue to worry about what's happening. When we know that there's a certain amount of abuse that happens to children, and teachers have been, educators and staff have been a
Absolutely.
wonderful way to surface those things, to be able to look and talk and hear and all of those things. So that part of one of the challenges that's happened is we don't have eyes on those kids. We haven't been able to do that. And of course, even with the Department of Family and Protective Services, because of COVID, it's been more difficult for them to do investigations. So I think we're going to have fallout from that, because there are kids who are in unsafe environments.
Yeah, and I think once we're finding them, it's a little bit more advanced than it has been, because it's taking more than, usually you have a little bit of a, gatekeeper with teachers and with counselors and with nurses at schools. So it's taking more, like something more serious happening before they're getting the attention of, somebody else in the community.
Yeah.
So,
When the legislature first said that y'all needed to be trained on child abuse prevention, I thought that is ridiculous. Why would you even talk to school board members about it? But your staff are so many times the front line, the people who are recognizing it. So, your job is just to know what's in place, to make sure training is in place, to make sure prevention is in place, to make sure those things are done from a policy standpoint. But it really does make sense. I learned more about, and I was a prosecutor. I learned more about human trafficking preparing that course than I'd ever known.
By the way, you did a really good job with that. I watched it. You did the test in the fall, right?
I did.
You did a really good job because I didn't want to do it. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. And yeah, you kept me engaged, even via Zoom.
Yeah, I volunteered to do that just because I understood. Because so many times you say, what is the legislature thinking? Why are they requiring
Right.
that? But it actually made sense. And it was, yeah, thank you. What else? What other challenges? Not that we have not surfaced enough things to just depress us totally.
Well, what about the issue of the fact that since we are a like say minority district in a high percentage of poverty, that our food issue for our kids and for the families, that will be an ongoing issue in the Waco Independent School District.
Yeah, for a lot of kids, the meals they get at school are the meals they get. And especially when we shut down almost a year ago, the biggest thing, we're how do we continue learning, but how do we also continue feeding? And that continues to be just like it always is over the summer. And how do we get it to where, folks can get it? Because you can say we're going to be at these schools, but if they don't have transportation. So yeah, the food issue is huge. And
the question I asked Dr. Ken Callan, are we still doing that program where that they will send kids home with food for the weekend?
Yeah, Pack of Hope, I believe, stopped during this period. They had, I don't believe they've been doing that throughout COVID. Now, we continued to feed, and you guys know that. We did a lot of feeding sites initially, and then we pared that down a little bit, but we did a lot of just curbside drive through and pick up your meals all across the district. It was highly successful.
But that's the issue that's going to hurt families, because sending kids home with food for the weekend, I mean, that was of course that was a major help for so many families.
And I think they'll start back up again, but they, I think most of that group is volunteers, and some of those are are a little bit older, and they weren't comfortable too.
Another challenge that I think that I don't know if we have a grasp on is, kind of what Norman said in terms of majority minority. We've got a pretty large or a fairly substantial first language Spanish, English second language learners. When you take them out of a school environment where they're able to practice English, speak English, hear it, all of that, and I'm just kind of wondering what kind of effect it's going to have on those kids academically. They're going to be if they choose virtual, they're going to be obviously in their native language, which is great. But I'm just wondering, gosh, what these kiddos, they're going to have to kind of catch up. I don't know of very many. I think, from what I heard, the Hispanic community here had kind of been split in terms of sending their kids to school and keeping them. More parents I was hearing were probably going to send them, but I just wonder about that. I wonder about those kiddos who have to do virtual, who English is their second language, kind of the immersion that they get in school, what the effects of that are going to be. That's just, I don't know necessarily if that's a challenge, but I just wonder about that group in particular.
I think that is a challenge. Any of us who have taken another language, as long as you are using it, you are much more likely to become fluent, to remain fluent, to be, literate, and not just in speaking. But once you stop, and once you don't have that interaction, it suffers. We think about that over the summer and the longer period. How do we do that, and how do we do it effectively? I think that's a challenge. Anyway, I've written it down, so it's clearly a challenge. Okay, what other challenges? Not that that's not enough.
Well, we spoke to student achievement and we've spoken about literacy, but we haven't talked about math. And the data is showing that kids are losing the most ground in mathematics because of the skills building on top of each other and spiraling. And so I think we need a math plan, especially for middle, elementary, intermediate age students, that 3 through 7 group, I would say would be the most worried about. But I think we're going to need some intensive math work on top of the intensive literacy work that we already needed. And math was really one of our strengths. But I think we're going to have to watch mathematics very carefully.
Well, that gets into recruitment of highly qualified teachers too. Being able to keep
And
that
professional
being able to
development.
keep that pipeline
Yes.
filled.
I
Yeah.
will say, in the elementary level at least, math is a lot easier to teach because it is so kind of black and white, a little bit easier than reading. So I think if you were to choose reading and math, reading is the practice going in. It's a lot longer, slower kind of increase, whereas math, you get those good teachers in there, you can make several year gains, but you also, if you don't have your eye on the ball and know that that's what you need to concentrate on, it can slip by pretty easily.
Well, you can peel that recruitment side back to competitive salaries too. We're going to be stressed with state funding, and we're trying to keep a very careful eye on our salary schedules because of the competition there. Well, I'll say Clinton County and Texas, and the major urban areas that from a mobility standpoint, teachers and their families can move. So I think we're going to be constantly challenged with competitive pay, evaluating our benefits programs, as all that folds into our budgets.
That's funny. What we're getting, the lack of it.
Yeah, and I think it's harder because our enrollment's relatively flat. So we're going to have to make decisions on what's important to us, particularly in staffing, and put our money towards what's really important. Got some hard work to do there.
I can tell you as a home teacher with a virtual kid, for most parents, math is much harder. We can go in there and help read and we can help figure out what that passage meant, and my 5th grader's doing stuff that I literally did not do until I was in 9th grade.
And that's part of it, right?
Yeah,
Parents
yeah.
can support reading a little bit easier than mathematics.
I'm hanging in there, but just so you know.
Way to hang in there.
Yeah.
With the math too, I just want to say that with the virtual learners, they don't feel as like to ask questions. They'll just kind of sit there and well, if you're in class, you're probably more likely to.
You have someone over your shoulder.
Yeah, hey, I don't understand this, but virtual learners will just be like, I don't want to say something and everybody else gets it and I'm over here at home not. So a lot of them are just staying quiet and, and the teacher, they think, hey, well, I guess he gets it, but, they're not asking for the help. And that's just one of the bad things about virtual learning.
Can't touch it. Yeah, just that connection, that eye contact, if it's learning or
Glazed
not.
over, you didn't get it, okay.
Or if the pencil's not moving, it's fairly clear they don't know what to do with it.
Right, all those cues that you use in your classroom.
And I can also tell you as a parent, even if I actually am pretty good at math, I don't want to teach you in a way that your teacher isn't teaching you, because I don't want to, which is why the videos are helpful, but you just don't want to disrupt. So it makes it challenging. I'm going to be reduced to tears and no, just kidding.
Think about your video,
Oh, yeah.
your math skills.
I got math skills. I got math skills, Carrie. I
I'm
do.
trying to explain the tears.
Yeah, but it's trying to, trying to convey that in a way that doesn't disrupt his,
Right.
you're staying after.
The way he's gonna,
You're definitely staying after.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, do you have a challenge other than challenging me? And you're doing a good job, just so you know.
No, I just, things are more like they are today than they ever have been before.
We gotta process that a minute.
Yeah, that's a Roy Rogers kind of thing,
Yogi
yeah.
Bear or something? Okay, so, well, I'm hearing, a lot of our challenges just really, maybe they've got a different veneer, or the approach is altered a little bit, but the underlying burden, we hadn't shifted that much. We're talking about the same stuff we always do.
Don't tell the newbies that.
Well, no, I'm not.
Don't tell them it never changes.
And this didn't help, this makes everybody's job across the board more difficult. No doubt about that. And I think, but we've got a lot of poverty to deal with. That makes everything I've ever heard. At the risk of offending somebody somewhere, I almost get tired of hearing it. I've heard it so much. I get it. We're there. It almost doesn't bear repeating anymore, so, but I've, and maybe that's not, I don't mean to be, I don't want to offend anybody. I'm just sort of making that observation about that part of our task. Hadn't changed. Still there. We'll be there next month, next year, 10 years from now. I don't think this problem evaporates.
I hear you, but let me ask if.
Sure. Feel free to challenge.
No, I'm not challenging you. I'm saying yes, and.
Right.
What a lot of communities have found is that COVID has, with job losses, with illnesses, with businesses struggling,
right,
that may have made it worse. Not that you weren't always dealing with it, that you've got some people who are food insecure who've never been food insecure, some people who
I got you.
have lost people, which means,
And I don't know what those numbers look like necessarily for a community. I don't know. I assume that those situations do exist, though. I would guess. Although dealing with food insecurity is certainly part of our task for the students, and I think that I think we pull out all the stops to make sure that, if anybody presents themselves as hungry to us, we turning folks down that look hungry? I don't want to hear that.
Christine did not turn you down.
She did not turn me down. She's not seen me since I walked in the door, so.
But our charge is education. And it's all tied together, I agree. That's not new.
Yeah.
I guess is all the, maybe the proportions will increase incrementally during the course of this. Like I said, I don't know what the.
Nobody knows it. We'll be studying this for.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'll wonder about the results they publish in their study too. But that's just me being skeptical.
A little bit.
But I agree with everything everybody said. I think it's, the challenges are all very legitimate, but my honest response was they sound like a lot of what we've been dealing with ever since I've been on this board.
The wise man said, there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
And he probably got school board credit for it.
Yeah.
Well, there is another challenge, because of the fact of so many people being unemployed and people who are renting or even mortgages nowadays. They may end up in the next, year or so, people moving around, moving out of out of school attendance zones and everything like that. That may end up changing the dynamics on the capacity of different schools and everything. But that is definitely unknown, since we don't know. I know that the federal government has this rental relief and everything like that, and the mortgage relief, but we just don't know how is that going to impact us in the next year or so.
Yeah. I don't think you'll get any disagreement here. We don't know what's going to happen.
One of our challenges that we're overcoming is expectations and belief that we are good enough and that we can get better.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a little bit of a culture that people might not want to come here. And we're trying to overcome that perception. So I think perception and culture and belief in ourselves and having that vision that we can do this. We can set the bar higher for kids. We can set the bar higher for instruction. We can set the bar higher for any program that we're running. And I think, that vision of improvement is it's a challenge for us. And that we're working to overcome, and I think we're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've made a lot of progress over the last year, but I think convincing people that this is a place you can be and want to be, and the schools are great. Somebody said the schools are great. The schools are great.
Mm-hmm.
If you go in our schools, you know that your kids are going to be fine in those schools, but you have to go in them and look and find the good.
Yeah.
And we've got to convince people that these are great schools, and then we have to keep getting better at the same time.
Mm-hmm. That idea of continuous improvement, but you're right, it's working on the expectations.
It is. It's expectations and vision and all of that stuff together.
And morale.
Raising the bar.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're doing, what's interesting is anything that you start now, it's going to be months
or years
before you start to see the fruit of it. And that's why I was saying you all have been together 18 months, 10 of which have been under COVID, because you're starting to see that turnaround. And it started here. Because if the 8 of you don't say, yes, we can do better, yes, we're going to continue to do better despite COVID, we're not going to use that as an excuse not to focus on facilities, not to focus on recruiting and retaining the most qualified people, that it's starting. When you tell me that you have a committee that met on Monday night, 90 people who were all enthusiastic, you are starting to see that. And that's part of why I spend time doing this, not just because, I do love hearing about what you're doing, but it's sometimes I have to remind myself of where we started, what the goals were, and what fruit we're seeing, so that you can go on to the next and, thanking all of the team members and the people that have been part of it. Mm-hmm. So you're building a different culture, and you haven't even been doing it for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So, pat yourself on the back, but having that idea that that's still one of the challenges because of perception. I have to turn around, because sometimes I can see you're watching, sometimes I can't, Stephanie. Okay, a couple more challenges. We're going to take another break, then we're going to be in the home stretch, and we're going to talk about.
I think if we look at our district, we've, in the 6 years that I've been on board, had 3 superintendents. That's a lot.
That is
a lot of transition.
Not the record, but it's a lot.
It's a lot for a district. And then this year we had COVID. So it's like, okay, cut us a break. We need a little break in for our district, I think for our students, for parents, you know, I think it's hard because it's like, it's great that we keep moving the ball forward. We've been implementing these changes, but you can't really see them or if they're working or not because COVID. I mean, we've got all the challenges that we named in terms of virtual learning, Zoom, teachers not being able to be there, math falling through the cracks because whatever the case is, you know. So I just think, gosh, I really want to know, you know, there's those two terms. If you're going to fail, fail fast. So you know that you can switch, you know, or, you know, yeah. And so I think.
I've never heard anybody say that, but now that you mention it.
Yeah, you know, if you're going to fail, you want to know, okay, the kids don't know it. You do a quick pivot. Great. Now here, this is what we need to do. Like you switch, you know, you do what the kids need. But it's kind of hard because you don't really have a gauge. And all of Texas doesn't have a gauge.
Right.
And
you're not alone.
yeah, you know, I mean, so I think in that regard, it is kind of nebulous. I feel like we're moving things forward, but it still feels a little nebulous. Like I want to see scores. I want to see the fruit of kind of what has kind of started to try to be implemented. So I think, so I think that's kind of a bit of a challenge. I don't really have a good grasp
So much disruption left.
yeah, really where we're at, and you know, how are ESL kids doing? How are our gifted kids doing? How are our special needs kids doing? How are, you know, our kids, just our sub-hops? How are young African American males doing in our school? Like that is important to know, and it just feels nebulous, and so that is a challenge, I think, when you want to kind of see progress, or if we're not making progress, what are we doing to course correct?
And I think kind of on the flip side of that is that as somebody who's only been on the board for 18 months, but was a parent for quite a bit before that, and has a parent who taught the district forever, one of the things that I've always, as an outsider, when I was an outsider, was just that there wasn't any kind of feeling like there was a long-term plan. And so I think that's something else that's really important. Like I feel like maybe we've gotten that now where it's like, we're going to try something for more than 18 months before we scrap it and put in the, you know, and start something else. So you can actually see if it does, because some things take a lot longer to develop, and sort of, I think, reaching out and kind of developing that patience with our community, with our teachers, with our students, that's going to, some things just take longer to develop. And so we have to kind of like look at both those things at the same time. Where are we really? Where are we getting? And then can we please let this, you know, give it enough time so that we can really see how it's gonna pan out.
Yeah, I think that's why Stephanie started talking about how many superintendents in that amount of time.
Absolutely.
Because they say that FOCUS is an acronym for following one course until successful, and it's hard to follow one course when you have 3 different courses.
Yep.
And it's hard to build, you know, that I'm going to be here long enough, you know, and we're going to be committed to this long enough, and you're going to be here long enough to see this going on, which is why we try to institutionalize things so that it's not dependent upon the persons here, except research says that stability matters, that the community will buy into it if they believe that you're sold too.
We had one superintendent that had 3 different courses their own self.
Again, a little hard to follow, but yeah.
I agree.
Okay, I'll
We'll
diagram.
No, we'll just
No,
leave
you
it
mentioned,
at that.
like, it seemed like you were stating that maybe like 1 course per superintendent. And I was just going to.
That was my hope. That was my fondest hope.
Yep.
It ain't always how it works.
Yeah.
There was.
Well, we've gone through several superintendents over time. And it seems like from a planning standpoint, they were all in the midst of developing plans, but it also customized plans or whatever. But it also seems like the timeline went on forever, because not only were we trying to reach a plan going in the future, but because of the changes, we were always getting feedback and trying to assess where we are right now.
Yeah,
And I mean, it was just like, we're in the mud, we can't get out to see the clear light of day.
yeah.
And,
Is there a TEA in there?
yeah, exactly. Very good.
No, the TEA
So-
says, no, we don't like that, we won't give you.
Yeah,
So it's those changeovers, I mean, changes, reflect an opportunity, but at the same time, it extends that timeline. And about the time the honeymoon's over, guess what? They're gone.
yeah.
So,
And that's impacted teacher turnover.
sure,
Because-
sure.
And teachers feel that every one of those changes are trickling down to them and they don't like it. They
Yeah.
don't want that continual change. They want to get a curriculum and stick with it, or an initiative and stick with it. And so they get frustrated.
Well, it's hard to want to invest yourself in something that's going to change
Right.
in a couple of years or a year or whatever.
Yeah.
The other thing about COVID was what I kept hearing from boards and staff, righteously so, was in the spring, grace before grades. That it's, this is too abrupt a change to run in and say, this worked, this didn't work, you did well, you didn't. I mean, which is why there was no STAR test last year. And I mean, people were split on this year whether there should be one, because we want to have that assessment. We want to know how we're doing related to everybody else, but we're not going to use it for accountability because you can't.
It's just too many X factors as to why people are performing well or not performing well. So.
You tell people you don't get any money unless everybody's back in place, and then no, yes, you do, and listen to your county health person, but no, you can't listen to your county health person, and here's what the state says, but no, you can't change it. I mean, that's part of the frustration, and that's not something that you created or could control. So I hear you when you say, I want to know how they're doing, and I know you're still doing assessments. You're still doing benchmark assessments. You're not waiting for the autopsy with STAR. You are checking in as you go. But yeah, that is a huge challenge, not just for you, but for everybody in the state. But still, that doesn't make me feel much better to know that, I'm sinking, but so is everybody else. Maybe I won't sink as far, which is kind of what you heard last week. Y'all aren't sinking as far, but you're still sinking and you still care. Okay, last break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about a very specific thing. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You might not come back if I told you. Oh, and, well, I'll give it to you when you get back. I'll leave this at your spot because we have to do the framework, which is changing. So this will be your last heirloom copy of it.
Wow.
I came here, now it's time to go home.
Okay. This isn't the new one, this is the last.
That's the old one because we haven't, they've either just approved it or there's one more reading. I'm actually not sure. But we won't print them up. And I have these at home, so these are your parting gifts. And that's for the last thing that we'll do, but I had to remember to give it out to you at a break. Because at the end of the training rule says that in order to give you team building credit, I have to ask you what further continuing education you need as a team and individually. You got to give me one thing. It can be one of those 5 things. It can be something off that sheet. It can be some of the things we've talked about. Nobody's going to come and check to see if you did it. It's just to frame that. But the other thing, we need to totally switch gears. Well, technically, there were 2 other things, one of which we won't finish today, unless we stay till midnight. But we talked about, every time I say midnight, Carrie laughs. I don't know why he finds that humorous. I'm not kidding.
That's what I meant my best.
Okay, I'm not. I've been asleep. Unless I'm out working, I would be asleep by now. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, I am ready to go.
Wow.
Yes, after I've had my 5-hour granny nap, I'm good.
Impressive.
Yeah, I used to laugh at people who said, I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't go back to sleep. I would just give them that poor thing of what is wrong in their lives. And somehow, working from home, I had some shift. Andrew, do we want to talk about, I,
Want to look at board operating procedures now?
well, no, we're not gonna, or do we want to talk about the policy?
The policy change, it's part of,
It's in this,
yeah,
okay. Do you
meeting
want to go to
structure,
that part of
board
it?
meeting structure.
Okay,
I want to ask, so when I asked Christy to run these board operating procedures, didn't it seem like we talked about these more recently than 2013? Have we talked about them since you've been on the board? I think 20, not, I mean, we can't find it, but.
we won't hold you responsible no matter what you answer.
I think,
I think it's more of like updates where we've amended the updates is what
I
I've
know,
seen.
but y'all didn't have an updated copy.
No.
Yeah, this is what's on your website.
I couldn't
Because
find
I know
any
it's just
record
small
of it.
sections, I don't think we've done. I know specifically because I had asked Pat about tuning in virtually when I first got on the board, because I read through some of the stuff and I was like, why, how do you do this? Like, why is it so convoluted? Is there any way that we can? And so we kind of went through some of the board policy to kind of try to see how.
So so the track
What did I
changes
have?
are to correct just some other, but the main thing is is to have a conversation about board meeting structure. There were
What page is that?
3 on
It's the
page, no, they're not like.
This is the
Well,
first.
if they were
On page
numbered.
3. It's the first full page of the
Okay,
text, board meeting structure, and there were 3 of us now. Maybe Carrie went to the CRSS training.
I never went.
Okay,
Is
so
that the
there,
one in
me,
Santa
Norman, Norman, you went, right? Is Norman here?
Yeah, I went to it.
Right, so there are 3 of the 7 of us, and the meeting structure that we've had has been at that training's recommendation. And over the last 18 months, we have not been following what we had been doing before, which is they had recommended having your entire agenda at your workshop, that everything, and then your next regular meeting was pretty much a rubber stamp of that agenda because you'd worked it all out before, and it was your ceremonial meeting. And so for the last 18 months, well, maybe probably longer than, I don't know how much fidelity, but because, well, for years, the policy was that there wasn't supposed to be an action item at all on that workshop meeting, and that's it. It seems like we've had action items for years on that, but
That's true.
anyway, so
It's been limited, right?
the proposed change is to limit the workshop meetings to only have action items that need immediate attention. And then have your regular meeting on the 4th meeting of the month, but to have that workshop meeting to be more of a workshop.
Yeah.
So that is what's edited, I think, and and the policy, our local board policy will need to be amended as well.
Right.
So basically, we're kind of going back to what we used to do in terms of the board workshop day, where we kind of work everything out, limited consent agenda, only emergency items on that one, and more of the official board meeting being the, hey, we've worked it out, we've given administration time.
Well,
to-
no, that's what, my hope would be that we had workshop meetings that were workshop dedicated items that were more like what we had last week.
Discussion, yeah.
Had items that need more extended
Time to talk
discussion,
about.
not the consent
Right.
agenda, but the demographic report or the athletic report or something that we wanted to just be able to have a couple of hours to focus on. But still limit action items, but not say we're not gonna have any, because right now our policy says we're not gonna have any action, which we haven't been
following that for a long time. So I think the proposed change is, only action items that need immediate board attention will be placed on the workshop agenda. And see.
You're not at, so you don't want to have everything on the regular agenda, on the workshop agenda. Because that would take a lot of time, I think. to
It's
cover.
just
Did y'all cover?
reiterating
It did take a lot of time.
It's
Yeah.
two meetings covering the same thing, basically.
Yeah.
So you just want like
Yeah.
the big ticket items that really need discussion on the workshop and then hopefully those
So
will
like
work
the
out.
compensation plan
Yeah.
would be a workshop item, then you'd bring that back to a regular agenda meeting to vote on. But something smaller, you know, that you can read, that's in a board packet, or you can discuss simply on a regular agenda, you wouldn't necessarily put it in a workshop, which is what I'm used to.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I understand that. I do think that the workshop meeting having the consent agenda on there did provide a week worth of time. If there was questions where one of us didn't necessarily get a clear answer, or it was a little bit vague, we had a week time to go back, talk with the administration, kind of hear, get answers, and then the regular consent agenda on the actual board meeting, it went fairly quicker. It went a little bit quicker. Workshop meetings were a little bit longer, kind of hashing stuff out, and it did give time. So, I mean, I can see the benefit of both kind of ways of doing it. I do think, I mean, you never know what is going to be important to which board members, you know, so I think that.
Well, I think that's it, right? It's about, for me, it's about my time, and do I want to spend my time, and I will, if that's what you all want, but do I want to spend my time doing agenda items and staging all those agenda items, or do you want me spending my time with principals and teachers and kids? Because one is more time intensive than the other model. So what we've been doing is pretty efficient, and we're bringing items, and I'm trying to stage those for you in a newsletter. You know, if there's something big coming up, I'm trying to get those into your newsletters. But I'll do it any way you want, but one's just more work for the staff than the other, and then it's repetitive for you to some degree, if you're having to hear it twice.
Ms. Tickle,
Yes, sir.
if I remember correctly, I also made a request that we go back to the old way of doing this, because we were going to meetings and stuff was presented to us that night that we had to vote on. And I still don't feel like that's right, especially if it's an issue that may be of importance. And once again, as Mrs. Corlaway said, what may be important to me may not be important to her and everything. But I still believe that, you know, at the workshop, we can review it and still put it on the consent agenda for the next regular meeting. And if we have issues, that we can either contact Dr. Ken Callan or you and bring up the issues if we need more information, or else, as we always have the authority to do, we can ask to take that one item off the consent agenda.
Yeah, I think that, so for me, I hear that. I mean, I agree with the goal, and I went through the whole training, and I thought, this is great. But the reality for me is, and we were having 4 to 5 hour workshop meetings regularly. We would be sitting here at 10 o'clock, 10:30, after we go through that lengthy consent agenda item, and then still have action items on top of that, and then come back to the next meeting, and it wasn't quicker. And we were meeting, I mean, there was a time there where we were having 4 to 5 hour meetings twice a month.
And then we got to the point of, we were getting so long, we deferred some of the workshop items because we were running so long.
Yeah.
And then we put them into the following week to add to an already busy agenda. So.
Well, didn't we change that once we went through that training, with school board governors. Didn't our meetings start getting shorter after we what was the gentleman's name that came in to train us when Dr. Nelson was there?
Gray Bill.
Yeah, Craybill. Yeah, we cut our meetings almost in half.
Well, remember, we were supposed to be doing I guess we still are supposed to be doing the
Self-assessments and stuff.
TEA leadership, what is that thing?
Governance.
LSG.
Oh, yeah, we're supposed to be doing that, but that was,
Well, okay, so I think there was some wisdom in that program, and one of them was that they don't, one of the things that he, not just Craybill, but I mean, the whole program cautioned everybody about is taking up a whole bunch of time in meetings, picking stuff off the consent agenda to discuss and argue about. And, you know, that's why they kind of get into the whole business of timing you was, how long are you spending actually discussing student outcomes? And you know, as much as I disagree with a lot about what started with that program, I did think there was some wisdom there. I'm also sensitive to members feeling like they're being surprised by stuff on, you know, an agenda, and also to expect y'all to have that ready by the 3rd. I mean, that means you got 2 weeks to get the next one ready. And assuming it's supposed to be intact by the 3rd Thursday or whatever. And I understand that what reduces your time to prepare by about 25% or something. Is there another vehicle, maybe a synopsis of the agenda about what's coming? Not a complete agenda, but I mean, here's, and you know, Norman, I'm trying to imagine what the kind of things are that, other than you and I picking them apart about selling surplus computer equipment, which we haven't been able to do for some time. I'm expecting that to come around any minute.
Hey, Kerry, don't forget new buses and bus repair.
The old buses going, right? You know, we've got that one too. You know, what are the kinds of things that we would ask possibly you to direct our attention to beforehand and possibly give us a little more? You know, I agree. I think it's too much of your time. Try to get that thing ready by the 3rd Thursday is taking way too much of staff time, probably, to present information to us that, arguably in most instances, we're really not equipped to, not all the time, but really question.
you know, some boards, don't have any, I mean, some boards just don't believe in consent, don't have any consent at all.
Right.
And you have, you know, your regular meeting, everything.
Bill on every single item.
Yeah.
But I think, I'm familiar with one board that regularly meets till midnight.
Right.
And that's a regular occurrence because nothing is on the consent agenda.
Right.
Everything is worked through. And they meet twice a month and usually meet till midnight.
And brain research says that after a certain amount of time, you are no longer making good decisions.
Amen.
I'm sorry.
You said amen.
And by definition, consent agenda should be those things that are so
Regular.
routine.
Yep.
That, I mean, with exception, I mean, there is a provision that allows you to pull something off, but those should be the things that you're not majoring in. that there shouldn't be a whole lot of discussion about that do take away from the things that actually affect student achievement. So,
Susan, what did you say was working? I guess you reiterated a sequence or whatever that was working in Belton real well.
Yeah, we did, we really had one meeting a month unless we needed to have a special workshop. So we would have sometimes we'd have workshop kind of items and then a consent and a regular agenda all on the same evening. But we try to do everything in one monthly meeting.
With consent in the regular meeting?
And then
Only covered at that meeting and not at.
Correct.
Okay.
And then we would have special workshops as needed. So if we needed to have a facilities planning workshop to get the board together to talk about what they heard from the Long Range Facilities Planning Committee and to respond, we would do that. And we might have that regular throughout that process while we were working towards a bond program, but we didn't have more than one meeting a month typically, unless there was a workshop or a special meeting that was needed, and we'd call those as they were needed. So, I think, we work really hard to try to stage items to come to you so you don't get blindsided. So if you're feeling blindsided, then I do need to know on what items that was, because we're pretty conscientious about, okay, let's make sure the board hears the compensation plan report before they have to vote on it. We're staging those items. If there's going to be some big new literacy, like I think we did this with literacy, we talked about our literacy initiative before the board got to,
So like
had to
on the
vote to pay
compensation,
for it.
are you saying you would review that like in?
Just said at the beginning.
Review it in March and vote on it in April?
We wouldn't be ready for that in March, but a month in advance, yes. But that would be early for that particular item, but yes, you could review it 1 month, vote on it the next, and we can stage items like that. But to go through every single consent item, I think would be really cumbersome. So did y'all go through financials and everything? You did.
I think that 90% of the time we did not have a problem with the consent agenda. So it's very few times that, and like I say, depending upon the individual trustee, that there may be an item that they want more information about. But when you send the agenda out on a Monday telling us that we got to vote on a Thursday, even though that I may be semi-retired or retired right now, a lot of times I didn't have time to do any investigation on that item at that time or whatever. But I think I still say that the 90% of the time the consent agenda is approved without any, even maybe pulling one item just for one change or something like that. So to me, I don't think it's a big deal. We do it on the workshop and vote on it at the next regular meeting. I still believe that is the best way for us to do it.
Well, but what Dr. Kincannon is saying is to prepare the consent agenda for your third week of the month instead of your fourth, that means you're shortening the time that the administration has to turn all the work around. They're spending, yeah.
I think what Terry said is a happy medium, because what it is we're changing, there's been a lot of changes very quickly for the board in general. We were used to a certain way of doing our workshops or regular meetings. So, switching times, we've got COVID. That's a lot of, so I think, I'm not necessarily opposed to, okay, workshop, great, kind of get this. I do think kind of what Carrie said is maybe even having like a rough draft consent agenda that is maybe sent to you, maybe sent to all of us, so we can kind of look through and see, oh, what's coming down the pipeline in terms of consent agenda. And then
something I've seen the city council produce that might, it's just they passed it out before a meeting, and I don't know the timing of this, I don't know if it's a week before or day of or at posting, but basically it's just a really brief synopsis of the items that aren't apparent. Instead of, I think what Norman maybe, it's, I struggle with it sometimes too. When I have basically on Monday afternoon, I get a link to 200 pages of agenda. And for me, I mean, all right, I know most times I don't get around to reading all 200 pages, but just a synopsis, and I don't know, would that be easy to produce for the workshop? At that point in time, do y'all know most of what?
That's the thing,
You really don't know
it's
yet?
huge, it's big. It's a big organization. And so I'm getting items coming from technology and the business office and facilities and curriculum and instruction. And so we're adding items at the last minute. I didn't, I didn't see that one coming, but we can get it in there and get the business of the district done.
Right.
Because we've got an agenda to put it on. But if I have to stage everything so meticulously.
Yeah, no, it's you
then
delay it.
You're going to delay some things that need to be approved more quickly. So we're internally, it's working for us, but if it's not working for you.
But can't we can pull anything that we see on the consent
You
agenda.
can, yes. So if there's something you just don't feel comfortable voting on, I'm also accustomed to getting a phone call on the day of the board meeting that says, we've got board members with questions about these items. Can you pull that one this evening and talk about it? So, we could do that too. So if there's something that you need more information on. And I don't know what's the norm, probably everybody does it the way they want to do it.
Everybody does it differently, but I would tell you that most boards don't have 2 meetings a month. I mean,
they have 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it is a luxury to be able to have 2, but if they're going to be the exact same thing at both of them, the same amount of time, then you haven't. I think I'm going to guess, I've never done CRSS, so I don't know the intent, but I'm just going to guess the intent would be that you would be more efficient. And what it sounds like is that it didn't become more efficient. So I think what we're trying to figure out is how to do it so that you get the information that you need and yet not spend hours and hours doing the same thing, because it's not just board time, it's also staff time. So, and those staff meeting members have to be there. Not that you need them to be there, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but at the same time, we're talking about the burdens, the excess burdens that are on staff and students and board and everything. I hope this is the point of this is to be more efficient and more effective.
Well, I think Karen made a good point about the Lone Star governance, and that one good thing about it was highlighting how much time we had been wasting and staff time on things that were not focused on what we needed to be focused
On student outcomes.
on student outcomes. And in my opinion, how they wanted us to focus, we were doing all this math.
So I understand, I've actually gone through Lone Star training.
Yeah. I mean, we ended up just having
yeah.
meetings about metrics and math and people monkeying with numbers, but all that being said, I mean, it did hit home that we had been spending a lot of time discussing business items that are can be taken care of outside of the meeting if it's of interest. Or so I think what I'm hearing is people feel like they need more time to lodge those questions and have those concerns. And how can we do a better job of getting the info? This is coming.
Would it be possible, I kind of still like Carrie's idea, not necessarily of the synopsis, but knowing that you can throw something on the agenda last minute, but at least having some type of rough, even if it's like, we're just meeting, just a rough outline of like, hey, this is what we think is coming down the pipeline. And then if we have questions about it, and you're like, actually, no, it's not, just
I think maybe kind of having
Well, I
that.
think the other thing too, the longer Dr. Kincannon is here, the more she will be able to identify issues that different
Or of
board
interest.
members have questions and concerns or special interest in. Because, you know, and I've been trying to help with that, saying, no, that's something that we're gonna have to get more information on, but there hadn't been that much. I mean, it's all just kind of been COVID.
I guess I would, I guess I would ask what items did you not have what you needed on? Because I think very pretty deliberate, and I'm not being defensive. I just am deliberate about what is coming ahead and knowing that this is an item I've talked to the board about. This is an item I haven't given them any information on. So I think if you're reading your newsletters, I'm prepping you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to prep you. So, but if you don't have that, if you don't know I'm doing that, then you may not be reading those as carefully.
Well, and that's what
Because
I was
I
gonna say is-
really am trying to lay the groundwork for each board meeting for you.
And I don't think it's necessarily, so this is not on you.
Yeah.
This is, so let's go ahead and kind of clear that. This is not on you. This is not that you haven't given it to someone. It is
It is a big change.
It's a very large change. And so, so kind of getting used to it, kind of, it was a pretty abrupt
Yeah.
shift, you
And
know?
I
and so-
didn't consider that either.
Well,
So I'll admit
Well, we
that.
made the shift before you started.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Hazel and I made the
So,
shift.
Okay.
yeah, so it wasn't necessarily, but it was a big shift and then COVID and all of this. So I think it was a lot of change. So I think, you know, as we are doing this and get a little bit more face time, as we kind of work together, I think that, yeah, you can get a feel for, okay, what each person, and I think each person being able to kind of talk through that agenda with you and just saying, hey, you know, week and a half before, I kind of saw this on the agenda. What is this? Then you get that personal feedback from each of us. Does that make sense? Or just like a touch? I don't know. It's a shift, and I could very easily see us going to this.
But getting feedback from each of us defeats the purpose of having a board meeting, because we need to hear that interaction.
Well,
We
but not
need to-
always.
We need to understand what your concerns are.
Well, and not always, because what if it's just a small tweak? If I have a small tweak, you don't necessarily need to know it. I mean, you've had conversations with Kincannon through the phone call that I don't know about it, and it's fine.
I don't, but whatever you say. But my point
Alan,
is,
you don't need to get defensive. I'm really trying to just,
what I'm saying is, what you're saying may be small, may not be small to me. Or inversely, what you think may be big may also be big to me. Or what you think is small could also be small to me.
Yeah.
We don't know until we have that dialogue.
yeah. But all I'm trying to do is find a happy transition place. I'm trying to find a bridge between
President,
what I'm trying to do.
if you look at the our laws developing the board meeting agenda, the deadline for submitting the items for inclusion on the agenda is noon of the 7th day before scheduled meetings. So that means that if we got a question or something we want to add to the agenda, we have to give it to Dr. Ken Callan and you 7 days before that scheduled meeting. So that means that if the meeting is that Thursday, well, that Thursday before, we have to do that. Agenda requests shall be in writing or emailed to the superintendent within the timeline set in policy and shall be copied to the president. So, I mean, we already got these rules and everything like that, but the question is, how many times have, and I think I asked this before also, that we need to, and what we're doing tonight is going over the local agenda, the local rules for trustees for board meetings. So, I mean, we already got these rules in place. We got, shall we change them or shall we follow them?
So
I couldn't.
All
hear
I
everything.
was trying to do was trying to find a bridge to transition us to this so that everyone feels comfortable with it. And I understand you're sending out your newsletters, and I think that's great. And I've been reading them and trying to keep up to date and all the calendar dates that you send out. I think that really I was trying to find a bridge of like, hey, can we roll this out for like months and then see how it works? And if it doesn't work, scrap it.
And what did you want to roll out? Can you
Uh,
explain that again?
All I was thinking was some type of rough draft agenda, maybe instead of just the Monday before, maybe send it that Friday. I don't know, just a rough draft, knowing that we know that things are going to get put on the agenda last minute. We're not asking for a absolutely prepped, even just the line items, just that front page, not even a explanation.
And not have a workshop?
To follow this meeting structure that we're wanting to change was trying to figure out like how we can help transition. So looking for like a transition, some type of transition piece where we can, if we want to go to this structure, workshops, purely workshop, that, maybe if board members are saying that, hey, we need a tad bit more time, maybe we can do a super rough draft agenda, just the first page of the agenda item. People can kind of look at it and say,
Is there something like that in existence, Thursday before a formal meeting or business meeting? It was got.
Well, we have a rough agenda,
Yeah.
just a listing of items. We do that every week. I do that every week with my
Gotcha.
Monday team. But to
Okay.
sit down and write a cover memo for
Well,
every item and send it to
thinking
you
more-
early
no.
is a big ask. That's just, I
No,
would say that's a huge
I'm thinking
ask.
more along the lines of if somebody specifically on Thursday evening sees.
I mean, I can send it to you every Monday if you want to see my
Well,
Monday draft.
Yeah, no, and.
But you probably don't want that.
No, and
Yeah.
I do not. I really don't want that, but
Yeah.
it's not my concerns we're trying to address here. I was thinking, but if they see something that the Thursday before on that list that, you know what? I am specifically going to go to that Monday evening when they post it, because that interests me. For some reason, I have some questions about that, and that'll alert me to go and.
ask questions or
I
email
know you feel like it
Angela
might be a
and say,
mistake
hey,
for you to invite questions.
have your draft by Thursday. I do a draft every Monday, but what will happen is
It'll change.
I'll
Yeah.
take something off.
Yeah.
I'll change the order of things. I will
I think that
move.
has, that
I will
has,
add something.
I think that has to be
I will
accepted.
refine the language on it.
Yeah.
It's not gonna look the same on a,
Right, no, it's not
Yeah.
not for questioning
yeah,
that Thursday.
yeah,
We won't even allow that.
yeah,
It's for somebody, if they think something might be coming up, they want to be sure and catch Monday night in the 200-page agenda. Maybe that'll point them to it and be advance warning, whatever the item is that because I think the whole dynamic here is that folks don't feel like they're getting enough time to dig through it. And I've never done your job, so I don't know what I'm
Yeah.
asking. So
I think,
feel free to tell me that that's really not feasible. And that's fine.
I can send you this.
I don't, yeah. I
Yeah,
get it.
I can send you the one listing of what's on the agenda. I can do that every week if you want that, if everybody understands it's a draft. But I think, as a board member, that's why we post things 72 hours in advance, right? That's part of being a board member,
Well,
if I'm being frank.
I
And I'm just gonna be
Well,
frank
your
about
feelings if I
that.
tell you in advance, I'm probably not gonna look at it.
I mean, that's okay. I've sat on boards where I didn't have time to look at the items and it was on me, right? Because I didn't do my part and show
Right.
up and do what I needed to do, and I just had to be there.
Understand.
So I just want to be frank about that.
Yeah.
That's part of signing up to be on a board, I think. But if you guys want the weekly rough draft agenda, that's just easy because we're doing that anyway. We can email that if that makes you feel better. But you have to know it's going to change, and it will probably change a lot, because I'm thinking about how to frame it, how to, how to word it, how to move
Of course, I
it.
don't think
Because
weekly.
it changes too much, but I do think you and Christy probably have a pretty solid, pretty good on the Friday before.
We do,
Typically you will, I mean, things are still not finished and you still are waiting,
yeah.
but Friday, if,
But if
if
you
you
just
send
want
a
to,
draft of Friday,
Again,
this
not
is what's
the
in.
complete
Not,
agenda.
not everything in
Not the
it,
supporting
just the
stuff.
little list.
yeah,
Just the
Just
little
the
list.
notice,
Just the little list.
just the
yeah,
notice.
I can do that.
Just that
Yeah, I
Friday
can do
before the
that.
Because
workshop.
that's not gonna change a whole lot.
And even if it does
Right.
change, it's okay, because it changes sometimes when we get here. It's like, oh, actually, that one's been taken off. I mean,
By law, well, 72 hours.
yeah, but, so I
Yeah, you
just,
can
I
always
just,
pull something.
I just think that,
Something off.
I think
You
it
can
might
always
give a
take it
little
away,
bit
yeah.
more of a heads up, and it
But
could
we're still
be,
gonna do it, but we're not gonna.
we could do, it could help us transition to this framework, we, I don't know, it might give a little bit more time.
Okay.
6 months from now, it might have been.
Yep, totally might have ended.
I don't think it'll take you 6 months. I don't. I'm just saying.
I think
And-
I think you'll go, oh, I don't really want that.
Probably.
Most of you are going to be busy on Friday before the Thursday meeting too, but if you're, but I can do that. If that's what you want, I can do that. If that helps people feel better, I can do it.
And
Because-
Let's
Try it.
let's try it. We
Yeah.
don't have to change policy to try it, right?
Nope.
Yeah.
And that's only half of the concern I heard, though. It was, sometimes we're voting on things that we haven't had enough time, but it was also, we are literally doing the same meeting twice.
So you haven't
It's
been,
ridiculous.
they used to before.
No, before she started.
Oh, well,
No,
They haven't been doing that.
I was
They
paying
hadn't
too
even-
much attention, I'm
Jose and
sorry.
We have not
Hadn't even been doing
experienced that, and I have to
They
say I would
haven't
not be
done
in
that.
favor of going back to that model, because it
Okay.
sounds like a lot of wasted
Mhm.
retread,
We
but
had
I don't
some-
know,
we
because I
were
wasn't
here a
part of
long
it,
time.
so.
Well, that's what we found out. We were spending a lot of time on things that had no impact on outcome.
Right.
No.
Sure.
Makes sense.
And
then
then
we'd
the
ask
really
for a
important
report
stuff,
from
we
staff.
wouldn't even get to, like, we wouldn't even get to start
You-
talking
you
about
felt
budget when we were trying
that
to do the
pretty-
budget
That's not hard
till,
on me.
what?
Just don't ask me to write all the memos early.
No, no, no,
And then I'm
no, no,
done.
no.
You know,
And I just think
there's
that'll
some-
help with the transition, a little
Yeah,
bit more of a
yeah,
heads up.
yeah.
Alan, I'm sorry that I snapped at you. I
Cool.
felt,
Cool.
So we
I-
wanna
I'm-
try that
I'm up
before
to
we
try that
make
in
any changes
between.
and see what we wanna
I'm
do.
just sensitive to our needs and the
absolutely,
superintendent.
absolutely.
I
And I
agree.
think everyone we're not wanting
And
to do
no,
that.
the point is
Yeah.
very valid, and I was gonna say also, I think you were on the board at that time. On the workshop, we were going through the agenda items individually, I mean, the consent items
Yeah.
individually.
Yeah.
Remember, Pat would go, is there anybody want to make comment on item A, B? I mean, sometimes if there are 15 or more items on consent, it would take a while to go through those items, and then we saw them the following week as well. So,
Yeah, no, I get it. Like, I get it. I just think for people who've maybe been on the board, we need a transition piece for people when they were used to, we were used to.
Well, and I
that.
appreciate it, Norman, and this is a perfect time to talk about it, last time was October, she hadn't even been here a month, so it wasn't a good time to talk about process, so it's time, and, so what I'm hearing is, if you could send us that draft on Friday,
Mhm.
let's hold off on making any changes until, let's give it a couple, 3 months, see how that's working, see if everybody feels better, and then we can come back and talk about this again. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is that good, Norman? Are you
I'm okay, but what's been on my mind is that like I say, we all have different interests and everything, and what is the purpose of a school board member? And I know we are not responsible for day-to-day operations. That is Dr. Ken Callan's job. But we are supposed to be aware, of budget expenditures, of problems at different schools, problems internally or externally and stuff like that. And like my friend Mr. Dupree said, you know, we invested in buses and tires and stuff like that, but those are all monetary expenditures. Now, when they come to us and start giving us information about DBAs and about student progress and everything, I know those are issues, but the people that Dr. Ken Callan has in place are the professionals. Mrs. Tico and Mrs. Corlaway and maybe Miss Houston are teachers been in the classroom. I'm sorry, I have never been in a classroom. I have never taught, and sometimes those things to me are boring and everything like that. But
Oh, okay. Boring.
Boring, yeah, not the boring, but boring. But you know, I just like for us, because our job that we so-called took an oath to is to make sure that Waco Independent School District is operating efficiently for all, for the financial aspect of it and for the educational aspect of it. And there are certain things that we need to know. And like I say, it's not day-to-day operations, but progress, student progress. As Mr. Sykes has said, those are issues that we need to know and we need to be kept up with. But also, like I say, thanks to Cheryl Davis that she keeps a financial report to us that's always been top notch and everything like that, and always been one of the best ones in the state of Texas and everything. But yet and still, when they come to us and say that our third rate reading level is down, our graduation rate is down and everything, we need to have the information. Well, what is the problem and what is the solution? Now, and those things may take a little bit more time than normal, but if we are supposed to be board members, those are that is part of our job. We need to know if our once again, if we are not meeting the state level for graduation, why and what are we doing to get to that level?
Well, I think we're all in agreement there. I think that's what I think that's what our workshops need to be about, rather than talking about surplus, just because you mentioned it's not talking surplus computers for 30 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Time well spent.
Okay, so
Karen, I won't ask that question anymore.
talk about it again and see how we're doing before we change.
Yeah. Let's try it. Let's try it. And if it doesn't work, then.
I think at the core of this, we're talking about changing habits, our own habits.
Yeah, what we're used to.
Well, helping people transition to a new habit, and it's gonna take a little bit of.
We'll get there.
Huh?
We'll get there.
We'll get there. We'll get there. We will. Okay.
Last thing. I already told you what's on the test. You gotta give me one thing that you further continuing education as a team and for each one of you. You can give me more than one, but you gotta give me at least one.
I said, what?
One
You got that written down?
Yeah, it's in the preamble.
It's in the preamble.
Preamble says that in order to do your job as a board member, you have to talk about this framework, which is what we've been doing, believe it or not. And you have to annually assess your continuing education needs as a corporate body, as a team, and individually. It's all in the preamble, trust me. That print's no finer than the rest of it.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, it's there. It's part of the rule.
Who knew?
I tell you every time I'm here, but who knew, Carrie? You're right. I wake up in a new world every day.
Blink.
Okay, I'll start.
Okay.
So I think
one of our challenges with COVID is to find ways that we continue to work together as a team of 8. So I think under unity, to have opportunities that we can work together to develop teamwork and problem solving, decision making as a group. And personally, I would like to figure out how to be a better advocate, especially with representatives who are not all that sympathetic to our situation. That's advocacy for me. Yeah.
Yeah, she suggested unity for the team and advocacy for herself.
Okay.
That was going to be, I was giving everybody else time to make their.
If you text schools to 313131,
Yeah.
you'll get legislative updates on school
really?
stuff. I just did that today.
Yeah, I just, and then y'all can interrupt me as y'all. Yeah, our legislative representatives are not sympathetic to public schools, especially not to us. And you just think, and we were going over that legislative priority list with Waco Leadership Forum yesterday, and I thought, what do you do? Do I take time to drive to Austin to meet with people who are not
Gonna listen to you.
going to
anyway.
listen? I mean, I don't. And I think, well, should I be?
Well, I mean, and
I don't know.
the thing that kind of made me question kind of which direction it should be going a lot during this last election is that I still think that the public really isn't, we could do a better job of advocacy with the public as to who makes these decisions, that it's not a local board decision sometimes.
Right.
And we're not trying to pass the buck on these things, but we are being told very specifically about some of these items that we have to do it this way. And so that if they want to advocate for something to change,
It's
the legislators,
Right.
and they need to do that, and they need to, figure out what they as a community really think that the priorities should be. So I guess for me, I kind of think advocacy, but.
And most boards say of the 5 broad categories, that's the one that they feel the least efficient at, effective at. And it's legislating on national level, on a state level, and also in your community. Who else can you partner with to sing the same song?
Well, isn't that the purpose of the, I'm the representative for Waco Independent School District on the TASB legislation. And that's our job, that when school districts have issues, we present them every year to the TASB, whether it be virtual or in person. And those issues which TASB has a stronger position than what we have individually. And that is how we should approach it. If we got an issue that we should make it, available to TASB during the the legislation program when we have it every year. And that is the purpose of what they say, that they are already in there. They have their representatives and stuff like that. Doing it on an individual level, there's no way in the world that most of us would be able to even get in.
Well, the other thing is, part of the legislation that's proposed every year is to keep you from paying dues to groups that advocate on your behalf. Like TASA, TASB, TASBO. So you kind of have to advocate to make sure, because we can't go say, we do go say, you shouldn't do that, but they need to hear from y'all also. Right. And they need to hear from the public. So it's not either or, it's both and. So yes, I agree.
But I've heard that because of COVID-19, that they have limited the number of people that you can't even get in contact with your representatives or whatever, and it's hard to even get into the gallery nowadays to even look at what's going on.
We got to figure out another way. What is your individual continuing education that you need? Norman?
What was that?
He's seen this so much, he knows. What do you need more training on? Is it vision? Is it structure? Is it accountability? Is it advocacy? Is it unity? Is it all of the above, none of the above? The answer is always C in a multiple choice.
All the above. I'm gonna take the easy way out.
Right. You can't have a pattern. Okay.
What did you say?
He said all of the above.
All of the above.
In East Texas, we call that earthing, but I put you down for earthing. You are THANG earthing.
You know, Kay, I wish I was there to look at you.
You have my super secret cell phone number. You can FaceTime me all the way back to Huntsville, Norman.
I want to change your number.
The party does not have to end. Yes.
I would say structure as a team.
Okay.
For the reasons that we've just kind of reiterated tonight on policies, because time since we reviewed it, time to review it and step up to improve them. And I would say individually accountability. I mean, this is primarily driven by COVID and conquering COVID. And where do we go next in terms of effectiveness, measurement, using the word accountability as it relates to our mission and stated goals.
And you know, there's already a team in place that's trying to figure out what's the next high stakes test. They put that in place years ago. They've been working on it.
Yep.
You now know that STAR is going to be totally online as of next year. So,
Right.
Is that right?
yes,
So I think I need to come up to speed on what that next generation is.
absolutely.
That's the goal anyway, yeah, for us.
Who next?
Go to advocacy. The board leads in achievements of students and staff. I mean, recognizing students and teachers, you know, like Dr. Cannon calling and the staff calling teachers. I mean, that goes a long way to a lot of teachers and recognizing students. I mean, just, I mean, with COVID, we couldn't do as much, but before that, I mean, just, I think it was a national, what do we do at university? The national honors?
Yes.
That was something new. I mean, just, I mean, that little thing,
Pre-scholars, national scholars.
yeah, that right there, I mean, parents and students, I
That
mean,
was so nice.
I mean, it just brought more interest. I mean, because it hadn't been done, and just to let them know that, hey, you know, we care, we're watching your progress, and we're proud of you. That goes a long way, and
Superintendent scholars.
yeah.
That, yes, we need to do that. Yes.
And I mean, for me, I guess accountability, just, or pretty much all the above for me too, because I mean, this is being new and still learning. I just try to do as much as I can still.
See, Norman Jose's joining you in earthing. It's a thing now. Okay. I'm not going to mention that. Your answers are all that stand between us and the door.
And I'll answer twice.
You
Okay.
did it. You answered twice. Stephanie, Carrie.
I think for me
Okay.
personally, I think leading and recognizing achievements, student, staff, and engineering, kind of what Jose said, I think that, you know, the celebrating of people within the district, administrators, teachers, student, I think that's something that we've kind of done a little bit before, but I've just seen it done a little bit more frequently. And I feel like it really is a culture shifter for our district. And so I think in that, want to also kind of be a lead on that aspect. Maybe not even just people within our district, but people within the community who are either advocating for us or who are contributing or who are volunteering or just doing things here or there. I think that's something that I want to get better at.
Goes a long way.
Yeah.
Carrie, Dr. Kincannon.
It's down to me.
It's down to the two of you. You can arm wrestle on who goes first.
I was going to go last. You want me to go next? Are you ready?
No, yeah, you can go last. I
He got here late. He's gonna catch
well,
up.
I'm not sure. Can I answer? I mean, I feel like both,
Okay, so he was keeping.
You just ceded the floor to Dr. Kincaid, so we
He said
need
she
you
could
to
go
not
last.
ramble over there. Go ahead, we'll come back to you.
how did I cede the floor? What did I do?
You just said you told her to go ahead.
He said she could go last.
Ew.
He said I could
It's
go
time
last.
for me to leave, because I couldn't figure out why you were.
Yeah, no, okay.
Well, I also thought he said this stuff was boring.
That's common.
I can't hear with a mask on.
Right. My ears don't work either with a mask on.
They're covered.
Carrie can't talk without it.
Me personally, and I think the board as well, we need help with probably accountability at this point, because I'm not sure we know how to measure anything that's being done. We have great faith that we trust in your leadership, and I have no reason to believe we're not doing as well as we could or can under difficult circumstances. But truthfully, on that front, I think we're kind of lost.
That makes sense. This is all really nebulous. I agree.
But nobody take that personally. It just is the way things are right now.
We're not taking it personally.
You're not.
Okay, I chose Unity and Vision, and that would probably be for both. Both of those would be for both, I think. But I think we've grown a lot as a team, and I think we still have work to do. But I think we have come a long way, and I'm really excited about that. And then I think Vision. I think the board and the superintendent, the team, needs to continue to work on vision and where we want to head, and so we stay in sync.
Yeah.
And I think those go together.
Yeah. And continue to communicate that to the district and to the community. Okay, let me thank you for letting me come and for being patient with my craziness.
Thank you.
There is a method to my madness. Thank you, and I appreciate the way that you all worked through the challenge of the workshops. I think you've come up with a workable solution, and I love what you said, that we're just easing into this. We've got to, we're letting go of some habits. Any questions for me?
Form new habits.
Exactly, form new habits.
No, I told you this when you called this afternoon. I just want to thank you for sticking with us, and you keep coming back. We haven't run off yet.
I didn't know it was optional. She calls me, I say yes. I didn't know I was able to say
Just try
no.
saying no sometime. You'll see if it's optional.
Oh, okay, and she keeps bribing me with food. Yeah, this is a walk in the park compared to some distances that I travel. So thank you. It's good to see your faces rather than on Zoom.
Yeah, thank you.
And yours on Zoom.